You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 13th part of What If Deku and Hero Academia joins Power Rangers. Smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. UA, high school principal's office morning. Early in the morning in Nezu's office was Ren Amamiya, who came to UA. A few hours early than usual was having an important meeting with the principal of his school. I don't think students normally see this much of you, Principal Nezu, Ren commented with Sayla sitting next to him, while Eri was sleeping soundly in her lap with the demon's arms wrapped around the small girl. Sayla was dressed in a female UA standard uniform with her usual thigh-high socks that revealed her heels and toes as she was barefooted. Tommy was also there sitting on his student's other side as he was present at the meeting. Well, maybe they should, Nezu countered with a joyful expression. Being principal isn't as busy a job as you might think, and I'd never turn away a student who wants to learn. Ren and Tommy just laughed, shaking their heads in amusement. What? Nezu asked with a smirk. Do I need to hand out engraved invitations or something? Principal or not, I'm still a teacher at this school. Is there something you need from us, Nezu? Tommy wondered, shaking his laughter off. I doubt you would have called us here this early in the morning if it wasn't important. Need? Not at all, Nezu replied. Want? Well, there's this nice little coffee shop I know that does amazing crumpets. I'd love one of them. I'd like for villains to just stop already, but that would end up with half the heroes out of work. I have many wants, but doesn't everyone? I suppose so, Ren mused while rubbing a black furry creature in his lap. Now, as for right now, I want to know how Miss Sayla over here is adjusting to her new environment, Nezu told him while gazing at the female demon. I know this world may be different from what you're used to, but what you're doing already concerning the cure that leads you here. Sayla had an emotionless expression on her face before sighing at the little creature. Her time in this world was something she was still getting used to, but it was no different than when the demoness was back in Earthland. She spent most of her time reading books about this new world and was interested in how much different it was from her old world. Sayla also spends her free time observing her new master to understand him better, and to see why she is so drawn to him despite him being human. She also got the chance to meet her master's little sister and father who welcomed her into their home with open arms, which was surprising concerning that she did try to kill him. All in all, Sayla was quite enjoying her new life with Ren after getting kicked out of Tartaros. Today was her first day at UA, and her journey to become a hero, which was strange for the demon woman since she hadn't done a single heroic thing when she was in her old guild. While on her way to UA, with Ren and Eri, she notices she is getting looks from all over. The demoness dismissed many of them as she assumed they were from her horns, and the looks of it were nothing special to them since people in this world have strange appearances because of their quirks. However, most of the men were ogling her feminine features and giving her master looks of envy. Even as a demon, the looks from perverted gazes pisses her off. She gave them a look only a demon could provide, resulting in the remaining gazes looking away. Sayla didn't want to cause any trouble for her new master after everything he's done for her and had to restrain herself a bit more than she usually does in these types of situations. I'm adjusting well enough, I suppose, Sayla simply said to him in her usual emotionless tone. She's been behaving surprisingly well and is getting used to her new living arrangements, Tommy explained to the principal. Looks like Ren's fate in her was right. She really does want to change. I'm glad to hear that Miss Sayla is willing to turn over a new leaf, Nezu said before turning to the demon. It's quite rare for a former villain like yourself to get a second chance like this, he said to her with a smile. I'm only doing this because my master has faith in my abilities and to always stand by his side whenever he needs it. Sayla spoke with a bit of seriousness, while slightly shifting her gaze at him. Sayla, how many times have I told you to stop calling me that, and by my real name instead? Ren said, letting out a tiring sigh, as he fought the urge to groan, much made Nezu and Tommy chuckle a bit at him. Okay, let's get down to business, Tommy said, getting the conversation back on track. I'm pretty sure the reason you called us here has more to do than Sayla transferring to UA. Like the break-in a week ago, he said, making Nezu's expression turn into a serious one. Nezu took attacks on his school seriously. He was the dean of a large campus fostering several years of hero hopefuls and members of society that would go on to best complement them. It wasn't any mystery as to why their school would be a target of criminals. The only question Nezu had to answer was how he would react and prevent any future infiltrations, because the safety of his students was the top priority in everyone's mind, including his own. Never once, though, did Nezu predict the press would break into his campus grounds. They had always been a nuisance and a critical thorn in his side, and conversing with the heads of other schools like their rival Shiksu did he know the press was a thorn in everyone's side. No one was more critical of rising heroes than those who pushed gossip for a paycheck on the most marketable and profitable profession in heroics. Nothing bothered kids more in their years in UA than those who shoved cameras in their faces. But then again, he didn't know of villains who could disintegrate layers of steel into dust and transport them away without any trace whatsoever. The small headmaster turned his gaze to the AI across the table. Anything to update us on the villain's response to the break-in? Nezu asked the holographic man for his input. The holographic man sighed through his nose and returned Nezu's look before pulling a holographic screen of the break-in's recording. The video showed one of the hallways in the school as a black swirling vortex appeared with a man dressed in all black with his face covered by a hoodie the entire time. During our time off from school, we already informed the other rangers about the break-in and told them to be alert for a possible villain attack in the future and to also keep quiet to avoid any of the other students panicking. Tommy said to him, which made the principal a bit pleased. That's good to hear, Nezu said with a smile while looking back at the scene of the video recording. DCA. And I checked over the security cameras footage of the time between the break-in and when it was over. Apparently, the culprit dressed in black had his face covered in a hood the entire time, so DCA wasn't able to run a facial recognition on the intruder. Tommy said to them, well, these intruders seem to be pretty smart for a couple of humans. Sayla commented with narrow eyes as she had to give these so-called villains some created. Yes, but let's see what they were doing all this time during the crisis, Nezu said, continuing to watch the video. Going back to the video recording, the black swirling vortex disappeared from behind the hoodie man as he began to navigate his way through the hallway without issue. After a minute of walking, the hoodie figure made his way to the facility office and walked into the room. It seems that our unwanted guest is going into the facility room, Nezu said with a critical gaze before asking the AI something. Tommy, please switch to the security camera in the facility office. Tommy nodded before switching the camera footage to the facility office. Once the hoodie man was in the room, he walked around the room to check each of the computers he passed by, before sitting down in front of one of the computer screens and began to use it. Then what seemed like a good 2 minutes, a nearby printer began to print out some sheets of paper that the intruder walked over to and grabbed before the familiar black vortex appeared next to the man, with him walking into a black portal as it faded away. That was everything the security cameras were about to capture during the time the intruder was inside the building. Tommy said, making the screen disappear from sight, as everyone in the room was thinking about the intruder's motives. They came in fast and left just as quickly to print out a sheet of paper, Sayla said, raising an eyebrow at the whole break-in. There has to be more to this than she realizes, as to why these intruders would risk breaking into a school full of superpowered humans for something so dumb as printing some papers. What was he even doing on one of the school's computers? Ren asked out loud while patting something on his lap. I reviewed what the intruder was doing in our network and saw he had accessed the school scheduled files and printed out sheets of this semester's schedule, DECA. Explained to them. But how did he get access to the school's network? DECA and Tommy both upgraded UA systems a mouth age after we had that meeting with the teachers, Ren said, having his hand under his chin in a thinking pose. The code they made is pretty much impossible for anyone to break through. Even a master skilled hacker would have trouble breaking into the firewall. Apparently, one of the teachers had already accessed UA servers before the break-in, so the culprit was about to freely use our systems, DECA informed them, making the principal and Ren cringe a bit. Talk about an unlucky time, Ren muttered under his breath at how things worked out for the villain. Basically, you're saying is that the culprit lucked out because of the unfortunate timing. It seems so, Nezu said with a heavy sigh, as he couldn't really blame the teachers for this unfortunate mistake with everything that was happening that day. But what's done is done now. No point in dwelling on it. We just need to figure out what the intruders wanted with one of our school schedules. I think you're missing the most important part about this information, Sayla said, getting their attention on her. What do you mean by that? Tommy asked, curious about what she had to say. What I mean is how this intruder was about to walk through the school so well, Sayla pointed out, which made all of their eyes widen from realization. From what I could tell, this human knew exactly where he was going without much trouble, even though he had never been in the school before until now, and he was able to find this facility office to get what he wanted after escaping. That, a real good question, Ren said, a bit stunned by this before speaking again. How did the intruder navigate through the school? There are two possibilities that I could think of in this scenario, Nezu said with his eyes closed while thinking deeply. One is that this intruder is a former UA student who was expelled or kicked out. And what's the other scenario? Tommy asked the principal. Nezu then opened his eyes with a serious gaze in them. Someone, possibly a student or teacher, must have informed the intruder how to navigate throughout the school without much issue, he said, making the room go silent with a feeling of dread in the air. Ren had an unreasonable look on his face as he was thinking hard about what Nezu just said to them. Tommy didn't want to believe that someone at UA was working for the other side, but being a Power Ranger has taught him something, that anything is possible in the world. Even Sayla dangerously narrows her eyes at the possibility of a traitor in her master's presence. Sir, are suggesting that we might have a mole within our ranks? Ren asked with seriousness. It's highly possible that I may be wrong about this, but I don't want to rule out the possibility of a traitor since all my students' lives are at risk, Nezu said with a critical tone, as he didn't like going down this road, but had no choice after the break-in last week. If there is a traitor among us, then we need to be careful with what we do or say from here on out. Who knows what type of information they've been feeding to the enemy since the beginning of the school year. Tommy suggested to everyone. That's the best course of action for us to take at the moment. I'll have to ask Detective Tsukachi to secret investigation to look into this matter deeper, Nezu said with a nod. Well, if we're fishing people out, you can take all the Power Rangers out of the list, Tommy said to him, as there was no way that one of his students was the mole. Yes, I already figured that none of the Hero Force Rangers could be the mole, Nezu said with confidence. You can also take off all the teachers as well, Ren said to Nezu before continuing. I felt all of their emotions when we had that meeting a month ago, and didn't sense any malice in any of their hearts. So it's safe to say that a pro-hero isn't the mole. So that only leaves the students as our prime suspects, Nezu said, thinking over this matter very deeply. DCA. What are things like for our security? Alpha, Circuit, and Solon have just finished the repairs and fixing the decayed front gate, and upgrading the security system with the latest Ranger technology, so it would be almost impossible for anyone to break into the school again. Cruz, Smash, and Jax have been helping the UA robots with a number of random small jobs around the school, which turns out to be in our favor to avoid future problems. Redbot, Navi, and Tensu are in the Department of Support of the support course, assisting Mr. Majima's first-year class, especially with one of his more energetic students who's been causing multiple explosions. Robo Knight, Blue Centurion, and Rick have been patrolling the school grounds for anything out of the ordinary since the break-in and reported nothing so far. DCA reported much to everyone's satisfaction in the room. A smile grew on Nezu's face at how hard the Ranger's robotic friends had done so much to help his school grow into a safe place to be for everyone. I'm happy to hear that everything is running smoothly, Nezu happily said out loud. Speaking of things going smoothly, how much longer until the teleportation system is up and running? DCA, Ren asked the AI, as having the Alpha and Solon have just started working on the teleportation system this morning, and it will take some time until it's fully operational for use, DCA said to him. That's wonderful news to hear, Nezu said before drinking his tea. Having a Ranger's teleportation technology will be a huge help for us in the future endeavors. Nezu was right about the teleportation system being a huge game changer in the future, as they could deploy their forces to any location in the world to stop villain attacks and natural disasters in only a matter of seconds. By the way, Mr. Amamiya, I've been meaning to ask you this question since this morning, Nezu said, looking down at what was in his student's lap. Why is it that you brought a cat into the school? He asked the boy with curiosity. Upon hearing that, a black cat with hazel eyes rose up from Ren's lap and hopped onto his right shoulder. Now the black feline meowed out with its tail waving around. You can say I picked up this stray a few days ago and leaving her at home wasn't an option, Principal Nezu, Ren said, rubbing the feline's chin with his finger, making the cat purr a bit. It would have been better if you left that filthy thing at home, Master, Sayla said, as there was a detest in her voice while looking at the black cat with narrow eyes. But still, you must have a very reason to bring an animal here to a place of learning, right? Nezu said, pushing the matter, as he was curious to know why his students brought a cat into his school. Ren only just sighed in response before looking at Tommy, who nodded silently to his student to just get it over with, as it was something he was going to have to everyone sooner or later. Ren then slightly turned his gaze at the black feline before speaking up to her. "Alright, show him," Ren said to a black cat on his right shoulder. "Oh, how rude of you, Ren, to make little old me do this in front of him." The black cat suddenly spoke in a female voice and scolded him with playful words. "And after all the time we spent together, Naya." Nezu just blinked confusingly at how the black cat on his student's shoulder just spoke without warning, as he didn't expect that coming. "Just do it already, you shameful stray cat. We don't have all day for your foolish nonsense," Sayla said sternly at the feline. "Naya, it's cruel not calling me by name, Sayla," the black cat said in a fake hurt tone, then jumped off of Ren's shoulder and onto the floor. The cat's amber eyes glowed eerily one last time, and then its entire body began to shine as well. Nezu's eyes slightly widened in not only shock but also interest as the little white-haired animal witnessed the four-legged feline begin to glow in a bright light, before enlarging and morphing into a humanoid shape right in front of him. When the light died down enough for the UA principal to look back, he felt his breath hitch in his throat because of what he saw. Where the cat had once sat, there was now a voluptuous, fully grown woman standing there before him. This woman wore a darker than black kimono that was tied loosely together with a traditional yellow sash across her waist that somehow managed to tightly hug and outline her full hips in the pale glow of the moon. She also wearing a pair of black zori Japanese sandals held by purple straps. Her long, stunning legs and breasts, so large they'd probably have given Midnight even more self-esteem issues, were barely covered at all, to the point that even most people would have called her shameless. She had bright, golden eyes with her pupils in a vertical slit like a feline's, and her long midnight hair cascaded down her back in an unkempt mess that somehow enhanced her image even more. Two tails also poked out from underneath the back of her kimono, and each curled up over her sides with her cat-like ears sitting atop her hair twitching randomly. Her name is Kyoka Taoju, a Nekishu Yaokai and reincarnated devil. "Oh, now that was an interesting way to make an appearance," Nezu commented with a smile, and a glamour in his eyes, as he did love a good old-fashioned surprise. "So, I didn't get your name, miss. It's Kyoka Taoju. I'm a Nekishu devil, Naya," Kyoka said with a gentle smile. Though it was a tired smile, she looked extremely beautiful before moving over to Ren and jumping onto his lap sideways while wrapping her arm around his neck and pushing her face against his. "A devil and Nekishu," Nezu said with a raised eyebrow, as he was familiar with those terms but never imagined he would meet a being like her in his wildest dreams. "Yeah, shocking, isn't it?" Holo Tommy said with an awkward grin on his face. "But not the craziest thing we've seen or heard so far." "True, but tell me, Mr. Amamiya, how did you and Miss Taoju meet?" Nezu asked with interest, as he loved a good story. "Well, that's a long funny story," Ren said, chuckling to himself, as he could feel the Nico cuddling him with her body, making the teen heat up. "And one of the best moments in my life," Kyoka said, rubbing her face against Ren's, with a sly predatory-like grin. "Meeting my future mate was like a dream come true," she said in a seductive tone, enjoying being close to her man. "Control yourself, you horny stupid cat," Sayla said in a slightly irritated tone at the devil cat's behavior on her master. "Why, jealous that you can't make him feel this good as I can, Sayla," Kyoka said with a devilish grin before pulling his head into her large bosom, which made Sayla's eyebrow twitch in annoyance. Barry was still sleeping quietly in Sayla's arms despite the noise they were making. "I do love hearing stories, and you have at least 2 more hours until classes start," Nezu said calmly, drinking more of his morning tea, not caring about the little agreement in front of him. "So why don't you tell me how you managed to get another lovely girl's attention?" He was smiling even more than usual. Ren then removed himself from the 2 fun bags with his face heating up a bit, before turning to Nezu, who was enjoying watching this. "Well, here's what happened." Ren began his story about meeting the Black Cat Yaokai. High School DxD Universe, Forest Night. Flashback. In a lush green forest around the middle of the night, an interdimensional portal opens up in deep woods as Ren and Midoriya come straight out of it before it closes behind them. After the Tower of Heaven incident back in the fairy tale universe, the hero Force Rangers spent the last 2 days off of school to recover from their injuries. Luckily, thanks to their connection to the grid, all the Rangers' injuries fully healed up in a day or 2. Now, with their time off from school and hero stuff, Midoriya decided to pay Ren a surprise visit to his house, as the 2 boys were enjoying hanging out with one another. That is, until an interdimensional portal opens up in the middle of Ren's house again, which surprises the 2 Rangers. They learn very quickly that when a portal opens up in front of them, it spells trouble. So they decided to investigate this problem on their own without the others with them this time. So this is the place, Midoriya said, looking around the forest to observe his surroundings. He was wearing a white plain t-shirt with some writing on it, a light green short sleeves hoodie with blue paint, and his usual red shoes. Yeah, but it looks like the grid sent us into a forest, Ren said as he looked up in the sky. He was wearing a white t-shirt and a brown button-up short-sleeved shirt, with blue paint and his usual black sneakers. I wonder what world we ended up in this time. It must be something interesting to say the least, Midoriya said back, as he wanted to know if there was special about this new world they were in. Are you sure it was a good idea to leave Sayla alone with Eri and your dad? He asked as he knew that the former demon of Tartaros was trying to change her ways, but there was still a part of him who didn't trust her. It's fine, she's not the same as when she was with Tartaros, Ren said with confidence while turning to his teammate. Besides, Tommy watching her every move and will inform Nezu if she tries something. He decided to leave Holo Tommy behind this time. If you say so, then I trust your judgment, Midoriya said with a nod before speaking up again. But I still feel like we should have brought the others with us for some SHHH, Ren said, holding up his hand to stop his friend from speaking any further. I just heard something, he said, getting Midoriya's attention. What is it? Midoriya asked in curiosity. Let me see, Ren said before closing his eyes to use his genetic enhanced hearing to increase his hearing range. After her, man. Don't let her escape. You can run, but you can't hide, bitch. Your time is up now, you filthy stray devil. Ren couldn't hear multiple voices shouting out all over the place. It sounded like they were chasing someone. Then he heard a sound of the faint voice of someone breathing heavily like they were struggling to stay alive. When Ren was done, he reopened his eyes to form an instant look into his face after what he heard. Well, what did you hear? Midoriya asked as he could see the serious look on his friend's face and knew immediately what it meant. Not sure, but it sounds like someone needs our help, Ren said to him, as that was all it took for his green-haired friend to activate his quirk. Where to? Midoriya asked with seriousness, as green bioelectricity was dancing around his body. Ren didn't say anything. He just pointed in the direction he heard the trouble, and then both boys dashed in the direction of the voices in a burst of speed that would put Ida's top speed to shame. Nothing else needed to be said, as they already knew what had to be done. It was time to be heroes. Hiroka Taoju had lived a life of violence and betrayal. The only thing that mattered to her was her little sister. After the death of their parents, they had to stick together. She would do anything for the only family she had left in the world, even going as far as murder, and becoming a stray to keep her safe. Both of them, being the victims of cruel living conditions and experimentation, had to do something. She realized that if she went through with her decision, she wouldn't be able to see her sister anymore. But it didn't matter, she would find her again someday. Hiroka was on her way to see her younger sister again, as she usually likes to keep tabs on her once in a while to see if she is alright after the incident. But unfortunately, luck was not on her side today, as Hiroka was abused by a bunch of lower-class devils and a high-class devil one, who have been hunting her down for quite a long time. She cursed inwardly, knowing that they wouldn't give up, knowing that she had been an SS-class criminal for the past 2 years, but she was glad that her little sister was safe, but at the same time guilty for leaving her behind all those years ago. Her sister was all that she had, and her safety mattered more than anything in the world. Hiroka was caught by a surprise ambush and suffered some injuries, but nothing too major to kill her. Normally she wouldn't have a problem dealing with these small fries, but then the high-class devil did something that even took the Black Cat woman by surprise. When Hiroka's guard was down for a moment, the high-class devil attached a strange collar around her neck. This collar was glowing the same red glow as the weapons her pursuers had used against her. Try as she might, Hiroka couldn't get it off. As she continued to struggle with it, it let off a shock that made her scream and drop to her knees. Similar to the feeling she had felt before, all the muscles in her body weren't responding. Even her senjutsu and yaojutsu weren't working right. Whatever this device did, it restricted any and all magic. The devil hunters all started to laugh maniacally as they knew victory was theirs, much to Nekomata's annoyance, since the devil in general were power-hungry, arrogant beings. The high-class devil leading the hunter walked over to the defenseless SS-class stray criminal and raised his hand to summon a magical dark orb that was aimed at the woman. "Nowhere left to run, you damn stray," the high-class devil said in an aggressive tone, as if he was really to kill her on the spot. "Either you come with us quietly or die here and now. So the choice is yours." Hiroka narrowed her hazel eyes at the man. as her chances of getting out of this alive were very low with her being outnumbered, and she felt lightheaded with the cursed magical collar around her neck that was sapping away her strength by the second. Her injuries were catching up to her and she didn't realize it, but it was pretty cold out. All hope seemed to be lost for the cat yokai, until two figures moving in a blur hit the high-class devil with enough force that sent him flying back into a group of lower-class devils, and they all fell down together in a pile. To their surprise, the figures responsible for this were two teenage human boys in fighting stances, standing in front of Kyoka. "Who the hell are you two?" one of the devils demanded. "I think both of them are humans," a second devil said in surprise. "Humans? But that's impossible," a third devil said with wide eyes. When both heroes have avoided the scene, they ignored the devil's comments about them and immediately observed the situation to see that the men in front of them were dressed in armor while holding different types of weapons, and also noticed that some of them were flying in the air with bat-like wings on their backs as they could feel some kind of evil aura coming off of all the men. Suddenly Ren and Midoriya heard what sounded like metal clatter to the ground. Slightly turning their heads back towards the noise, their eyes slightly widened to find a woman in a black slightly torn kimono that was covered in dust and holes, leaning against a tree as she was hurt. She was wearing cat ears and two tails and was bruised and scuffs all over her, with a red collar around her neck. The two boys soon turned their attention back on the group of devils with narrowed eyes, as it didn't take a genius to figure out the situation. While this was happening, Kyoka's hazel eyes widened on the two human boys in front of her. These humans that just saved her weren't normal. They moved way too fast and were far too strong to be regular humans if they were about to send a devil, a high class no less, flying back like they were a ragdoll. Plus, she could feel some strange unknown energy surrounding the both of them. Whatever these two mysterious humans were, it certainly got Nekashu's attention. "I don't know what's going on here, but I do know that we're going to put a stop to it right now," Midoriya decided with a deadly serious tone. "You get one chance. Walk away now or suffer the consequences." Ren threatened them, which was enough to get the devil hunters out of their shock and raise their weapons at them in rage. This action surprised Kyoka a bit as she didn't expect these humans to protect her and fight against a group of hunters. Soon the high-class devil recovered from the blow he had just taken and looked at the two boys in anger. "As if we'll listen to two inferior humans," the high-class devil said to the rangers. "Your kind is nothing but bugs to us. Will these inferior bugs just knock you on your asses like it was nothing to us? So who's the weak one here now?" Midoriya mocked back at the devils, which only infuriated their rage towards the humans. "You little, just who the hell do you two humans think you are?" the high-class devil demanded in anger. Ren only just smirked at the question before answering out loud for everyone in the area to hear. "Just a couple of passing through Power Rangers. Remember that," Ren said as for some strange reason it felt right to say. This did not go unnoticed by female Nekashu, as her curiosity was now piqued. "Power Rangers," Kyoka whispered to herself, as she and the devil hunters watched the two boys pull out strange devices they'd never seen before. Ren held up his master morpher before changing into the blue solar morpher and putting them on. Midoriya held his mystic morpher in his right hand before changing it into the Dino Fury communicator and putting it on his left wrist. "Ready?" Ren said to his friend. "Yeah," Midoriya said back with a nod. "It's morphin' time." Ren and Midoriya both shouted together as they activated their morphers. Ren pressed a button on the left side of the solar morpher, and then moved his right hand in front of himself with it shaped like a claw. "Jungle Beast, Spirit Unleashed," Ren shouted while moving his right arm back while doing the same with his left arm and body. Then balls his right hand in a fist before bringing it into his left palm. Ren then brought both his right arm and leg up, before slamming them down with his right hand front side on his left palm and right foot on the ground, next to his left foot. He then shot his right arm forward with his left arm back in the air, while in some kind of fighting stand. Midoriya moved his left arm in front of himself, before quickly tapping the Dino Fury communicator. Then he did some arm motions to hold his left arm horizontally up and right arm behind his back, as the Midoriya's communicator glowed brightly in a white light to materialize the Dino Fury morpher on his left wrist. "Dino Fury key," Midoriya shouted while pulling out the T-Rex Dino key, then slightly shifted his body to the side to hold up the red key forward, before unfolding it into a small knight and holding his left arm back up to the side. Midoriya then shifted his body to the opposite side to move his left arm to the right side, while holding up the Dino Fury Red Ranger key above his morpher. "Activate," he yelled out before inserting the key into the Dino Fury morpher, then held up his arm left to the left side. "Link to Morphin Grid," Midoriya shouted while moving his right hand to his Dino Fury morpher to flip the metal part of the device at an 360 degrees counterclockwise, causing the morpher to light up red. Ren's solar morpher glowed as he was standing in the middle of a blue forest, before performing martial arts moves for a few seconds as his hands were glowing blue while moving them around. He then brought his hands together before thrusting them forward with the jaguar animal spirit coming out. Ren rushes into the jaguar animal spirit as it forms around his body, turning into his ranger suit. Suddenly, Ren's helmet formed on his head before he struck a pose and more of him took different ones. Suddenly, the screen got scratched out to reveal Ren and the jaguar spirit Zord. The background changes to a black void area shining a blue lightly light. Midoriya slams his right palm on the ground as cracks of energy form on the floor, before moving straight back up to strike a pose while the cracks of energy swirl around his body that creates a giant red see-through projection of a Tyrannosaurus roaring behind him, along with a cloud of grid energy appearing above him. Then he jumped high in the air straight into the grid energy that engulfed his body in red energy from neck to feet, before the red energy on his body changed to white as he begins to fall back down on the ground. When Midoriya landed on the ground, he was on one knee with his right hand on the floor, before quickly standing straight back up, causing the energy around his body to materialize his ranger suit. Suddenly, the boy's helmet appears behind his head and closes shut on his head, completing the transformation. For the others who saw them change into their ranger forms, they saw Ren's sunglasses glow before he performed martial arts moves with his hand glowing a blue aura around him. Ren then brought his hands together before thrusting them forward when they saw a blue jaguar coming out, then saw him rushing into the blue jaguar as it formed around his body, turning into a suit. Then they saw a helmet formed on his head. They saw Midoriya slamming his right hand on the ground, suddenly creating cracks of energy forming on the floor, before striking a pose, while the cracks of energy swirled around his body, manifesting a giant red see-through roaring Tyrannosaurus that took them by surprise as they see and feel a cloud of energy appearing above the ranger. Then they saw Midoriya jumping incredibly high in the air, right into the strange energy they never felt before, as it engulfed his body and he fell back down on the ground. When they saw him land, Midoriya immediately stood back up, causing the energy around his body to materialize him in a suit. Lastly, they saw a helmet appear behind the boy's head. After the morph was done, the devil hunters and Kyoka all stared at the two boys, slack-jawed and eyes widened in pure shock, as these humans just turned into spandex superheroes from the strange devices they used. With the stealth of a jaguar, Jungle Fury Blue Ranger, Ren shouted while doing a few marital arts movements before posing. He wore a blue spots printed on the side. The arms and hips had a black square going across them. The outfit also sported some black gloves. The helmet of the ranger resembled a jaguar and had 6 spots on the forehead with a thin, black visor. Midoriya immediately grabbed his Chroma Fury saber attached to his left wrist with his right hand to pull it out before leaping forward into the air and swinging his saber right after landing on the ground while the blade was glowing red. T-Rex Fury, Red Dino Fury Ranger, Midoriya shouted while smoothly swinging his sword around, before turning his body to the left to strike a pose with his weapon under his left wrist. He is wearing a red spandex suit with a jagged black spike on the center of his suit, with the left side of his arm being gray. He had gold cuffs on his wrists, forearms, ankles, and shins. He wore a silver belt with a gold buckle in the center of it. There was a silver slot holder on the left side of his belt that was meant to hold a sword. His red helmet was the design of a T-Rex, with the center of the helmet being silver. It had small green eyes on the top of his helmet and a black rectangular visor that had silver between the visor, making it look like triangles. Sacred gear users, Kyoka thought in utter surprise, as she had never known or seen anything like this before. Wait, no, it can't be it. Whatever they just did, it doesn't feel like the power of a sacred gear but something else entirely different. She thought, being rather interested in the apparition of the two humans, except the one in blue since he has the appearance of a cat. So the both of you are sacred gear users, huh? Doesn't matter either way, the high-class devil said as he was the first devil to get over his shock while narrowing his eyes at the two humans. If you think that's going to scare us off, then you both are fools. Sacred gears or not, he stated in a non-impressive tone. We don't know what the hell sacred gears are, but we do know one thing for sure, is that we're going to kick all of your asses, Ren declared while pointing at the leader of the group of devils. Huh? You two think you can kick our asses? We'll see about that, human, the high-class devil said after hovering in the air to summon more dark orbs that surrounded his body as a magical circle appeared behind the man. It's not that we don't think we can kick your asses, it's that we can do it, Midoriya shouted while holding his sword in a combat stance. So come and get some, you piss punk bitches. That was enough for the high-class devil to blow a fuse with a tick mark on his forehead as he gritted his teeth hard at the two humans trash challenging them. Enough of this. Kill the 2 humans first, then after the stray. The high-class devil ordered his man in anger before firing dark orbs directly at the humans at a speed that could kill a normal person. But the 2 Power Rangers deflected and avoided each of the dark orbs with ease, causing multiple explosions in the direction they were flying, thanks to their training and quick reflexes before changing at the group of devils. Soon the other lower-class devils got over their shock and had no choice but to fight them if they wanted to get their bounty. They follow their leader's orders and charge at Rangers with the intent to kill the heroes. Ren was evading all the devils around him who were attacking the Blue Ranger with their weapons and magic spells by moving his body around the enemies with graceful movements, almost like he was dancing around them while hitting the lower-class devils with quickly hard strikes of punches, palm strikes, and kicks that takes them out of the fight. Luckily, when Ren dodged their attempts to get him, the devil hunters would accidentally hit their own allies by mistake, which only made the lower-class devils angry at the boy for toying with them. 2 lower-class devils flying in the sky had enough of this and changed at the Blue Ranger from both sides, with their spears aimed straight at him. But Ren turned around and shifted his body back a bit as the 2 spears passed right in front of him. "Whoa, you almost got me there," Ren said sarcastically as he grabbed both of the spears in his hands, then used them to propel himself in the air, while spiral kicking a flying devil in the face that was coming at him for an attack, before landing gracefully on the ground. But the Jungle Fury Blue Ranger did get a moment of rest. As a devil from his left side swung a blade at him, the Ranger shifted his body backward to dodge the attack, then shifted it afterward to the left to evade another attack from his right side before pushing the weapons away with his right arm. Soon a devil rushes in front of him with magically enhanced fists for a punch, but Ren moves his arms around in a whirlwind spiral momentum to block each one of the enhanced strikes. When the lower-class devil went for another punch, Ren used the same whirlwind momentum to change the direction of the attack, also while turning the devil's body around and holding him in place with his right hand. Another spear user attacks the Blue Ranger from his left side, but unfortunately for the devil, Ren wraps his left arm around the devil's spear to stop the attack and holds it in place. Then a third devil attacks Ren from the front with a spear to impale him, and again the Ranger raises his right leg to do a whirlwind momentum that wraps his leg around the spear to stop the assault. "Yawn," Ren said in a fake bored tone before disarming the 3 lower-class devils he easily stopped. Then immediately slams both of his fists into the 2 devils on his right and left side at the same time, before Ren spins and kicks the one in front of him in the face, which makes them fall over in pain. The Blue Ranger quickly cartwheels backward with acrobatic movements to a safe distance to avoid more magical attacks fired at him from the lower-class devils as he continues to take them out one by one. Midoriya ran and pressed a number of lower-class devils while evading their attacks, before leaping on top of one of their heads to propel himself in the air, and slashing 4 devils in mid-air with his Chroma Fury saber in a single horizontal strike, making them crash into the ground floor. "Excuse me, coming through," Midoriya said while landing back on his feet before swinging his saber to the right to stop an incoming sword attack from another devil, then took the lower-class devil out with a counter-strike swing. The Red Dino Fury Ranger quickly turned back around to block another incoming from a magical axe-wielding devil, before countering with a hard spin kick straight into the devil's stomach that sent him flying back into a few of his comrades. Midoriya used this opening to rush at more lower-class devils, while furiously slashing each one in his path with both skill and precision. He then leaped straight up at the nearby tree and flipped off it to soar backward into the air, while the lower-class devils fired different types of magical spells at the Ranger but were unable to land a single hit on him, as Midoriya slowly landed back on the ground like a feather. "There's nothing my blade can't cut," the Red Ranger said before blocking another assault from his right with his left arm, then spin-slash around to cut down all the devils surrounding, as he was now on one knee striking a cool pose. While the Midoriya and Ren were handling the devil hunters, Kyoka was staring at the teenage boys in amazement and wondered how 2 humans were capable of such power and skill. They are going toe-to-toe with a group of devil hunters without any difficulty. They are on par with a high-class devil, maybe even a little higher. With Ren and Midoriya taking out most of the lower-class devils, the high-class devil was getting irritated with how these humans were easily taken out his men, and unleashed more of his power to create a bigger dark orb 3 times a person's size above his head. "Die, you worms," the high-class devil shouted while throwing the death ball at the 2 boys. Ren and Midoriya barely had time to notice the attack, as it made contact with them, and then there was a loud explosion with a lot of smoke that covered a wide range of the forest. The devil hunters thought that the 2 humans had died of his attack, but There was a sound in the cloud smoke, with both Ren and Midoriya jumping out of the cloud side by side, before barrel rolling on the ground and standing up on one knee without so much as a scratch, which surprised the devils a bit. Not bad, but you have to do better than that, bud. Ren taunted his foes with a grin. We saw that attack coming a mile away. It was powerful but lacked speed, Midoriya said as he and Ren stood back up. They managed to dodge the giant orb at the last second before it hit them, and come out of it in one piece, Kyoka thought while continuing to obvious the battle. Someone just kills these pests already. The high-class devil shouted out in frustration, as it was enough to make the other devils continue their assault. This is getting old, Ren said before looking at his friend. I'll go low, you go high, he said, getting a nod from him. On it, Midoriya said as he knew what Ren meant before the two spit away to avoid incoming attacks. Midoriya was dodging enemy attacks while grabbing a dinoki from the right side of his belt, right before leaping back to get so distinct from his opponents. At the same time, Ren did some acrobatic back and side flips to dodge long-range magical spells, before stopping himself as the Blue Ranger was at a good distance away from his attack. Then he placed his left hand over his right fist to focus his power. At that very moment, the two Hero Force Rangers were about to do something that was going to surprise everyone there. Call to the beast inside, unleash the jaguar, Ren shouted while doing a few martial arts moments, as blue swirls of energy surrounded his whole body before he thrust his right hand forward to project a giant image of the jaguar spirit, which caught everyone by surprise. Then the jaguar spirit rolled its whole body forward like a spinning wheel, and launched itself across a bunch of lower-class devils. All the lower-class devils on the ground were helplessly whipped out in a matter of seconds before the spirit of the jaguar stopped its assault, and lets out one final roar, then fades away back into its owner. This left everyone watching in a state of shock, except for Midoriya, who used this chance to prepare his own special attack, as he held up his sword before grabbing the lever handle on the Chroma Fury saber to open up the mouthpiece. Blazing Dino Key, ready, Midoriya shouted while holding up the armor key, then unfolded it into a small knight, right before inserting it into the open mouthpiece of his Chroma Fury saber, making the mouthpiece eyes flash up green for a brief moment. The Red Ranger then grabbed the lever handle on his weapon with his left hand, before closing and reopening the mouthpiece a few times again, as energy was traveling up his right arm. Then the Chroma Fury saber's blade ignites in a burst of flames, and the fire starts to swirl around Midoriya's upper chest to manifest a battle armor with the head of the Daimtrotten for a right shoulder piece. Blazing battle armor, Midoriya shouted as the supernatural resident of this world was shocked again for a second time to see armor form on the human boy. Is it hot in here or is it just me? He commented with a smirk, before adding a bit of his quirk's power into his right arm to boost the swing of his attack. The Red Ranger then crouched down a bit before jumping into the air with all of his might, straight at all the devils flying in the sky, as the blade on his Chroma Fury saber was engulfed in fire. Oh no, the high-class devil thought in a panicked tone and put up a large magical barrier to protect himself and the other devils from the incoming attack. Blazing Fury Blast, Midoriya shouted while swinging his saber in a horizontal slash that created a whip of fire that slammed into the magical barrier. Unfortunately for the devils, the barrier didn't last for very long as Midoriya's attack broke through, thanks to the added power of One for All, and hit every single devil hunter in the air, with multiple explosions going off that effectively took out all the devil hunters, except for the high-class devil who was sent flying backward towards a deeper part of the forest. You bastards, the high-class devil yelled out in anger while being sent soaring back with burn marks around his body as he took some damage from the attack. The only reason he was the only one to savior that attack was because being a higher-class devil made him more durable than that average devil. Soon, the Red Ranger landed back on the ground and removed his Dino Key from his sword with the battle armor disappearing from his body. Guess they couldn't handle the heat, Midoriya quipped to himself before Ren ran up next to him. Nice job, dude. Now let's take care of the last one, Ren said, getting a nod from his friend. Right, let's go, Midoriya said back to him. Then the two boys ran towards the direction the high-class devil flew in to continue the battle until they went deeper in the forest and out of sight. Meanwhile, Kyoka was left there alone with widened eyes, curiosity about the display of power she just witnessed the two humans perform. The scent they gave off was certainly human, and watching them fight was definitely interesting since they defeated multiple devils, sending a high-class devil flying back in colorful strange outfits. Not to mention the power they wielded while wearing those outfits wasn't a sacred gear, senjutsu, yaojutsu, magic, or any other source power she was familiar with. While humans defeating devils is nothing new, most of those devils were weak, either low class or strays, sometimes mid-class. Of course, there were individuals who could defeat stronger devils, but they were either powerful magicians, exorcists, holy or demon sword wielders, or sacred gear possessors. So, the fact that two unknown humans, using mysterious powers and weapons, were able to do this much damage to a high-class devil. Whatever that power they used, it was mysterious and powerful. So, curious as she was, Kyoka gathered up the remaining strength she had left and followed after the rangers who not only saved her from the devil hunters, but also continued to watch their battle, giving her a reason to not run away anymore. But unknown to the two heroes, their morphin into this world had been felt by almost every supernatural being of immense strength worldwide. The four great Satans, the seraphs of heaven, the leaders of Grigori, the leaders of the Yokai, the gods of Asgard, the gods of Olympus, the old Satan faction, the 5 dragon kings, the infinite dragon god, and even the 2 heavenly dragons sealed away in their scared gears were just a few of the beings that felt a ripple of power wash over them. This power, exerted by the Rangers morphers and caused by their sudden morph while in this world, releases a wave of pressure fraction to the combined might of the entire morphin grid's limitless power. The most powerful beings in the supernatural pantheons were now aware that someone or something with the ability to forever change the world had entered their universe. Kyoka Academy Occult Research Club Night. In a school club room, the 2 teenage women of the room were playing a friendly game of chess. The first girl is a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous body, white skin, blue-green inherited from her father, and a buxom figure. Her most distinctive feature is her long, beautiful crimson hair, which she also inherited from her father, that reaches down to her thighs with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also has loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. She's wearing a school uniform, which consists of a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt, with a black ribbon on her shirt collar worn under a black shoulder cape and a matching button-down corset, a magenta skirt with white accents, and brown dress shoes over white crew-length socks. Her name is Ria's Gremory, the Gremory clan's heiress after her oldest brother, and known as the crimson-haired ruined princess, because of the color of her hair and power of destruction. The second girl is a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous figure, very long black hair, and violet eyes. Her hair is usually tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with 2 strands sticking out from the top and sloping backward, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. Like Ria's, she wears the customary girl school uniform, along with black calf-length socks. Her name is Akino Himejima, a queen of Ria's Gremory's peerage and reincarnated devil, who is known as the Priestess of Thunder. As they were enjoying their time, the 2 devil girls stopped and their eyes widened with them feeling a strange unknown power. Akino, do you sense it too? Ria's asked in a serious tone with narrow eyes. Hi, it feels, Akino said, placing her hand on their cheek, her eyes half-lidded. Incredible, she said as a tingle of pleasure went down her spine. The crimson-haired girl was curious as to what the presence was. Whatever it isn't giving off the presence of any supernatural being she was familiar. It's powerful and ancient and it was near her territory. So what do you suggest we do then, Bachu? Akino asked her king how to handle this matter. Let's just obvious the situation for now, since it hasn't entered our territory just yet. But if it does come to Kyo, then we take action to see if this unknown intruder is a threat or not. Ria said, not wanting to jump the gun on this one since she had no idea what they were doing just yet. Whatever this unknown power was, it got the young devil's attention. Kyoka Academy Student Council Office Night. Meanwhile, in another part of the school, multiple teenage women in the room were going over some paperwork. One is a bespectacled young woman with a slim figure, black hair styled in a short bob cut, and violet eyes. She is wearing a Kyoka Academy girls' school uniform. Her name is Sona Citri, is the next head of the Citri clan. She is the president of Kyoka Academy's student council. The second is a young bespectacled woman with long straight black hair that extends all the way down to her knees, with split bangs and light brown eyes. She is wearing a Kyoka Academy girls' school uniform. She also wears blue, semi-rimmed glasses with square lenses. Her name is Tsubaki Shinra, the vice president of Kyoka Academy's student council, and reincarnated devil. She is a queen in Sona's peerage. The third is a young beautiful girl with white hair and blue-green eyes. She wears a Kyoka Academy girls' school uniform. Her name is Momo Hanakai, a bishop of Sona's peerage and reincarnated devil. The fourth is a slim girl with long brown hair that ends in 2 short braids and matching eyes. She also wears a blue headband. She wears a Kyoka Academy girls' school uniform. Her name is Raya Kusaka, a bishop of Sona's peerage and reincarnated devil. The fifth is a beautiful girl with shoulder-length, reddish-brown hair tied into twin tails and brown eyes. Her hair features swept bangs and a single strand of hair sticking out from the top. She wears a Kyoka Academy girls' school uniform. Her name is Tomo Meguri, a knight of Sona's peerage and reincarnated devil. The sixth is a tall girl with blue, shoulder-length hair and matching eyes. She has the basic appearance of a tomboy and has a bishounen face. She wears a Kyoka Academy girls' school uniform. Her name is Tsubasa Yura, a rook of Sona's peerage and reincarnated devil. The last one is a short girl with brown hair and long twin ponytails and green eyes. She wears a pair of green clips in her hair and she also wears striped green stockings. She wears a Kyoka Academy girls' school uniform. Her name is Raruko Nomura, a pawn of Sona's peerage and reincarnated devil. While looking at some papers, the devils soon felt an unknown wave of energy wash over them for a moment as they all felt a chill down their spines. Sona hasn't felt that kind of power before, not even when her sister was around. What was that? Sona asked in a concerned tone while feeling that amount of power. I don't know Kaichu, but it felt pretty close, Tsubaki said in a shaken tone. Sona saw her vice president was also shaking in fear, along with the rest of her peerage shaken from this unknown power. They all soon looked outside of their club, but they saw nothing, probably because the student council was far away from the source of the power. Whatever it was, I'm sure it's something we can deal with, Sona thought nervously while pushing up her glasses a bit. Underworld, Gremory Mansion Night. In the underworld, a handsome young man with the appearance of a man in his early 20s with shoulder-length crimson red hair and blue-green eyes, wearing steel-gray armor on his upper body with white pants and a shirt under the armor. The armor has fold trimmings on the edges with 4 extrusions on both shoulders. His name is Surzech Lucifer, one of the 4 great Satans and heir to the Gremory clan, also known as the Crimson Satan. Surzech was enjoying his tea before he sensed a wave of unknown energy, which made him pause for a brief moment to process what he just felt. Then a beautiful woman entered the room. She appears to be in her early 20s, with silver hair and matching eyes. Her hair, which flows all the way down to her back, features a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest is let down, ending in twin braids. She was wearing a blue and white French-made outfit with long sleeves and a white-made headband over her head. Her name is Graphia Lucifuge, the wife and queen of Surzech Lucifer. She is also known as the strongest queen. Surzech, Graphia called out to her king in a professional tone, as the said man turned his head before a smile appeared and broke his stunned state. Ah, Graphia, what seems to be the matter? Surzech asked his wife. Ajuka has made a surprise visit and would like to have a word with you about an urgent matter. Graphia responded but had a bit of anxiety in her stomach. Even if she didn't show it, the ultimate queen also felt the strange energy wave but did a good job of hiding it. Surzech blinked upon hearing this from her. Wondering what Ajuka wanted, he got up from his seat before following Graphia. When he followed her to the living room, there stood a young man with light blue eyes and green hair that was slicked back. He has a mysterious aura around him that gives off a devilish trait to him. He was wearing a black cloak over him as it opened from the lower torso to the legs, revealing a type of tunic with the lower half dark green with gold trimmings. His name is Ajuka Beelzebub, the chief advisor for the technology department, and the creator of the Evil Pieces system and the rating game. What brings you here, Ajuka? Surzech asked his longtime friend. Pardon my sudden arrival, Surzech, but I had to bring you some important news. Ajuka responded back with a serious tone. One of my devices detected a large power spike near Kyo, he informed as this made Surzech raise an eyebrow. How large are we discussing? Surzech asked in curiosity as this might have something to do with what he just felt earlier. A possible Longinus-class sacred gear, Ajuka replied in a serious manner. This caught Surzech's attention. The Longinus-class sacred gear is extremely powerful when in right hands and such with 13 of them in existence. And the sudden power spike means that there is a powerful one near Kyo. Could there actually be a 14th one? If I had to guess, it must have something to do with that strange energy I've felt, Surzech said out loud, which got the other devil's attention. So I wasn't the only one who felt it as well, Ajuka commented as he was curious about this unknown power. Should we send someone to investigate the anomaly? He asked him. I'll contact my little sister to investigate it. Surzech replied back with a smile but then was replaced with a serious expression. If what you said is true, then there could be a new, powerful sacred gear out there. Also, it might be best for us to hold a meeting about this matter with the other Satans. Alright, as wish, Ajuka said before a magic circle appeared below him, transporting him somewhere else. Surzech, Graphia said, getting the attention of her husband, King. Are you sure it was a wise idea to leave this matter to Rias? We have no idea what this unknown power is and how dangerous it might be, she said, worrying for her sister-in-law's safety. It'll be fine, Grafia. I trust Rias can handle this matter on her own, Serzech said with a smile, having faith in his little sister's abilities to deal with this problem. Miracle Leviathan Stadium night. Meanwhile, in another part of the underworld, a young girl was standing on stage doing a live performance of her show. She is a young beautiful girl with long, black hair tied in twin tails, and she has violent eyes. Her pink outfit borders line on a costume since it resembles some kind of magic girl. In her hands was a long pink wand that had a giant yellow star on it. She has a childlike body, albeit with large breasts. Her name is Seraphal Leviathan, one of the 4 great Satans, and Satan Leviathan, who was in charge of foreign affairs. Seraphal was making different poses along with a peace sign and smiling to the crowd, which caused her breasts to bounce as well. An explosion occurred of giant cheers and cameras flashing like crazy from the crowd. While during the session she felt a strange energy and stopped smiling for a second as she dropped her magical girl persona and had a serious expression on her face. What is this? Seraphal thought in shock over the unknown energy she just felt. Heaven night. In heaven, a handsome face, wreathed on both sides by long, blonde hair and green eyes, wearing gold and white armor with red and white clothing under the armor piece. Above his head was a golden halo. His name is Michael, the leader of the angels and seraphs, a group of angels that are the guardians of the throne of heaven. With him was an extremely beautiful woman with long, curly blonde hair, blue eyes that seemed as deep as the ocean, and flawless, pearly skin. She had a perfect, hourglass figure that would put any and all supermodels to shame. Her name is Gabriel, an angel who is the guardian of the throne of heaven. The two were having a conversation until they both stopped talking to one another, and a wave of energy caught the 2 high-ranking angels by surprise. They paused for a moment as they processed this new power they just detected. That was an interesting power I just felt. Don't you agree, Gabriel? Michael asked in astonishment while turning his head towards her. Indeed, Michael, I have never felt anything like that before, Gabriel replied to Michael with a stunned expression. Should we investigate it? She asked him as she looked at him in question. I think just keeping an eye would be beneficial. After all, one of the factions would bring up the rest of the information sooner or later. There is no need to pursue the Archangel, Michael replied, to which Gabriel bowed, understanding the situation, and resumed their chat. Grigori headquarters night. Meanwhile, in another part of the underworld, there was a tall man appearing to be in his 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs, and a black goatee, wearing a dark crimson, high-collared trench coat with 2 belts strapped across his waist. He was also wearing steel gray pants and black boots. His name is Azazel, the Governor General of the Fallen Angels and Grigori. Azazel was in the middle of his research of sacred gears and such before he stopped reading. He raised his head and turned his head to the door. The leader of the fallen angels shrugged before going back to his research once more. However, as he readied, his eyes widened to what he was sensing, causing him to drop the magazine he held. He quickly turned his head to the window before regaining his composure. The power he just sensed, it appeared out of nowhere. A power that was unknown and powerful, the same he had felt a few days ago, which sent a shiver down his spine along with every other fallen angel in Grigori. That power, Azazel muttered in great interest as his curiosity was now piqued. What is it? Whatever he sensed was something to reckon with. He knew that if he sensed it, then the other 2 factions, along with others in the supernatural world, would detect it as well. To him, it might be a possibility that it is a Longinus-class power. Not that of a dragon-like volley, but something much more of raw energy. A grin appeared on the Fallen's lips, since due to his interest in researching sacred gears, this will be an opportunity to find it. Azazel gathered his belongings and placed them back where they belonged before he left the room to begin his investigation of the unknown anomaly. Kyoto, Yokai Town night. In a Japanese-style garden, a mother and daughter with a 9-tailed fox-like human form appearance were having a nice evening together. The mother is a young woman with a voluptuous figure and very long blonde hair with matching eyes. She is a woman with delicate facial features, and her eyebrows are cut very short and round, a symbol of nobility. Her hair is usually tied in a loose ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs that end in a spiral, with taut bandages to keep it in place. She usually wears a traditional shrine maiden attire, and over that, she wears a white coat held closed by a red ribbon and a golden crown. Her name is Yasaka, a 9-tailed fox and the leader of the West Yokai faction in Kyoto. The daughter is a young girl with the appearance of an elementary school student. She has golden, blonde hair tied in a ponytail and matching eyes. She also has 9 golden foxtails and matching ears. Her main attire is the traditional Miko outfit and tall geta with a white tabi. The sleeves of her haori feature a giant red star-shaped pentagram, surrounded by 5 smaller pentagrams in between the points. She is also relatively short. Her name is Kunu, a 9-tailed fox who is the daughter of Yasaka and the young ruler of Kyoto. While the two were having such a relaxing time, the good sensation was replaced with anxiety once they sensed that wave of energy. This power, what was that? Yasaka thought with widened eyes at what she just felt. Mother, what is going on? Kanu asked in a scared tone with her body trembling. Italy, Rome, Vatican City, Vatican Church night. Somewhere located in the exclusive church, 3 individuals were seen training in a religious hall. The first is a woman in her late 20s to early 30s with blue eyes. She is dressed in a nun habit and looks like a stereotypical nun, though a rather curvy one. Her name is Griselda Quarta, an exorcist from the church, and is ranked the strongest exorcist alive. The second is a beautiful young woman with violet eyes. She has long chestnut hair that is usually tied into twin tails, each held with a blue scrunchie, but on some occasions she lets her hair down. Her attire is her church battle suit, which consists of a black, skin-tight, short-sleeved leotard with pauldrons, matching fingerless gloves that extend to her biceps, and thigh-high boots, all of which are adorned with straps. This attire is worn under a white hooded cloak with gold and blue accents. She also wears a crucifix around her neck. Her name is Irina Shidu, an exorcist from the church and wielder of the Excalibur fragment mimic respectively. The last one is a young woman with chin-length blue hair with a dyed green fringe on the right side and dark yellow eyes. Her attire is her church battle suit, which consists of a black, skin-tight, short-sleeved leotard with pauldrons, matching fingerless gloves that extend to her biceps, and thigh-high boots, all of which are adorned with straps. This attire is worn under a white hooded cloak with gold and blue accents. She also wears a crucifix around her neck. Her name is Zenobia Quarta, an exorcist from the church and wielder of the Excalibur fragments Durandal and Destruction. The 3 were in the middle of some training. Irina and Zenobia were kneeling on the floor with their swords in hand and sweat dripping from their faces, panting from exhaustion while catching their breaths after their very intense and Spartan-like training courtesy of Griselda, who didn't the least bit tried. As expected of the strongest female exorcist and Lady Gabriel's Queen of Hearts, she made us eat dirt in her training session and was truly strict and harsh in training her students, Irina said while panting. I know that she is always like this when she trained me, but this level of training is more intense, Zenobia added in while breathing heavily. I guess it goes to show that we still have a long way to go to become strong. But I believe that our faith in the Lord will give us strength to overcome the tribulation that will come to us, Irina said her piece. Yes, but someday we'll be on that some level too, Zenobia replied with a determination in her eyes. You both improved since our last time training like this. I still notice that you made a few careless mistakes and reckless decisions during our spar, which is something you two need to fix in the future, Griselda said, suddenly cutting in their talk with a strict voice as she lectured the 2 girls. But nevertheless, nicely done today, Irina and Zenobia, she said as her expression turned into a proud smile, as she was happy her students had gotten better. The 2 exorcists was now smiling happily to hear such praise from their instructor. Thank you for such kind words, Griselda, Irina said, clapping her hands together and closing her eyes, then began to pray. And we also would like to give thanks to the Lord for providing us with such a wonderful teacher. Indeed, Zenobia said with a nod before her eyes when narrowed. Because of her training, we can do more to serve the Lord and punish those in His name, she cried with self-righteousness fury. Griselda rolled her eyes at Zenobia's stubbornness and Irina's naivety. She made a mental note to scold them later after this before a wave of grid energy quickly passed by the Vatican Church, making the strongest exorcist alive freeze in place and eyes widen from the unknown power she just sensed. Irina and Zenobia looked at her in confusion as they didn't notice the unknown wave of power passing by. Unlike Griselda, what on earth was that? Griselda thought with narrow eyes at what she just felt right now and released an intimidating aura, which made Irina and Zenobia shake nervously in fear at the woman. Whatever it is, or maybe, I need to report this to the Pope immediately, she thought while ending their training early to see His Holiness about this new development. Asgard, the halls of Valhalla night. In a majestic, enormous hall located in Asgard, multiple people were sitting at tables and feasting on platters of meat and barrels of meat. The smell of freshly roasted meats, ranging from boars to great bison, filled the air, with everyone there having a good time. Soon the doors to the room open up, showing two individuals walking inside. The first is an elderly man with long, gray hair and a matching beard. He wears a gold and white monocle over his left eye, without the addition of the chain. He is wearing a robe, which is short and blue with a gold lining on the top and bottom of the collar, the sleeves of the robe, and at the front of his robes all the way down to the bottom of the robe. The rest of his robe is white with matching shoes. He also wears a golden and black hat, which is sectioned off into 5 mini sections that sport either the color black or gold. The top, middle, and bottom are gold and the sections in black are below and above the middle one. The black section features blue orbs at the ordinal points, north, east, west, south, etc. And between the blue orbs are red dots. His name is Odin, the chief deity of Norse mythology and leader of the gods in Asgard. The other is a beautiful young woman with long, straight silver hair and aqua-colored eyes who appears to be in her late teens. She is wearing a set of Valkyrie armor, which consists of a white breastplate with gold and pale blue accents and matching, fingerless gauntlets, boots, hip guards, and wing-shaped hair clips. She also wears a black leotard underneath her breastplate, black thigh-high stockings, and a pale blue cloth wrapped underneath her hip guards, all of which are clad with pink lacing along with her hair clips. Her name is Roswace, a Valkyrian bodyguard for Odin. "Good evening, everyone," Odin said to the Aesir gods in the room, who greeted the All-Father with welcoming open arms. "Now then, let's eat Roswace," he said, walking to his personal throne. "Lord Odin, please. You really shouldn't be blowing off your work like this," Roswace said, scolding her irresponsibility boss, while also following behind him. "I'm also the one who ends up doing your work for you." "Oh, calm down will you, Roswace. It's not that big of a deal sitting at a desk and doing boring paperwork," Odin said without a care in the world, as he sat at his throne. "This is one of the main reasons why you don't have a boyfriend." He smiled teasingly, reaching forward and slapping his personal guard on the butt to knock her forward. "Yay, why your majesty, what did you have to say that in fact of everyone?" Roswace cried out in embarrassment, her cheeks becoming rosy as she pouted at her liege. Then roars of laughter broke out from the gods of the hall, at the usually comical embarrassment of Odin's bodyguard. Then out of nowhere, a wave of energy quickly passed through all of Asgard, making everyone in the room completely stop laughing and just stand there in shock to process the power they just felt. What is this unbelievable power?" Roswace said in a nervous tone. Odin hummed thoughtfully with a rare serious expression on his face, as this unknown power puzzled even him. Underworld, Bale Mansion night. Meanwhile, in another location within the underworld, a muscular young man was working in his family's personal gym. He is a handsome young man with black hair and violet eyes. He is very tall and has a muscular build due to the extreme training he has done. His name is Sareorg Bale, the heir of the Bale clan, and is known as the strongest young devil. Sareorg was busy in the middle of some late-night training, as he preparing for an upcoming raid game and was currently doing some push-ups with only one hand. As the young devil was counting how many push-ups he was doing, a wave of unknown energy suddenly wasted him, making Sareorg stop in place with his eyes widened. "This power," Sareorg said with a surprised expression at what he just felt before his lip curled up in a grin of excitement. "Whoever is giving off such a powerful presence like this would make a worthy opponent for me to challenge." He stated that the strongest young devil wanted to challenge whoever this person was giving off that energy. Agar's mansion night. Meanwhile, somewhere in the underworld, a girl was sitting at her desk working on a personal project. She is a beautiful young woman in her late teens with long, pale greenish blonde hair, long slit pink eyes, and glasses that give off an impression of being cold rather than cool. She wears clothes that are very fitting for female nobles and have a flashy design to them, with accessories that have the Agar's seal on them which give off a posh vibe. Instead of a dress, she wears a miniskirt and high boots which are matched by her posh clothing. At the young devil's gathering, she wore a blue robe that exposed very little skin. Her name is Sikvera Agars, the heiress of the Agars clan. Sikvera happily worked on her newly mecha model kits with a blissful smile. Many may not know this, but Sikvera is a mecha otaku. It became a hobby of hers, as this is what she uses to relieve the stress that comes along with being the future head of the Agar's clan. As the heiress was about to put the final piece on her mecha model, she completely froze in place when a wave of grid energy wasted over her in an instant. Something unexpected just happened. Sikvera thought as her blissful expression turned into a cold one before putting down her mecha model. But who was the cause of it? Human World Night. Earlier that day in the human world, a young girl was walking across some grassy flowery hills away from a camp of sacred gear users that call themselves the Hero Faction. She was a cute young girl with long black hair down to her hips and gray eyes. Her ears differ from a normal human's as they have pointed tips, although her long black hair makes this feature difficult to notice. Her dark gray eyes have reptilian slitted pupils. She wore a black cloak that didn't cover her front top with purple ribbons and a white triangular fringe at the bottom. A pink tie sat beneath her neck and X-shaped ribbons covered her naughty bits in front of her chest. Her name is Offeyes, the infinite dragon god and one of the most powerful beings in this world. Offeyes was having a good day. She wouldn't say she was happy since she hadn't really ever felt happiness, but Offeyes would say that she was satisfied with the successful recruitment of the hero faction. While they may have been very hostile towards her once she revealed her identity, they had nevertheless agreed to join Kao's bridge upon being given the temptations of power, just like so many before them, both mortal and supernatural. Just as she was preparing to make her way back to the main base of the Kao's bridge, she felt a wave of unknown power wash over her. The sheer unexpectedness of it caused the Infinity Dragon to stop in her tracks and just stand there for a few seconds as she proceeded what had happened. That alone proved how much power this surge contained. Offeyes had felt the power that exuded off the biblical god and Great Red and hadn't even phased. The Infinity Dragon had witnessed the power of all the forces of the three factions' armies, with the biblical god leading the angels in the last great war. She had even felt the power of that rolled off the Trihexa, the beast that had killed the biblical god, before. However, all of those powers combined wouldn't even feel close to the amount of pressure being given off by whatever exuded the wave's power that she felt not too long ago. Turning her head towards the east, Offeyes gazed out at the horizon as she contemplated her next move. This power was immense and had both benefits and drawbacks. On one hand, if Offeyes managed to convince whatever held this power to join the Kao's bridge, it was more possible that she would be able to force Great Red outside of the dimension gap almost immediately. On the other hand, this power sent an emotion she had never felt before flowing throughout her body since a few days ago: fear. This power felt limitless and could possibly greatly exceed her own, and she had no doubt that the possessor of it could harm or even kill her if it really wanted to, something only two beings in the world could ever even hope to achieve. Aside from this, Offeyes didn't know what she could provide to something so unknown to her. Every group and faction that she had managed to recruit into the Kao's bridge had been drawn in by her offer of power via her allowing them to use her snakes. With some being that she planned to recruit the future, she would offer them a chance to test their strength against other supernatural beings of immense power such as the Norse gods and the current four great Satans. But what could she offer a being whose power puts her own to shame? Offeyes had absolutely no idea. For the first time in her existence, the Infinity Dragon God couldn't act on any impulses. Offeyes had to be delicate with this situation. For the rest of the night, Offeyes would continue to contemplate the pros and cons of finding the power sources herself, many times switching between opting to leave the power sources alone while hoping to never come across it and doing everything in her power to bring it to her side while remaining on its good side. It wouldn't be until a few seconds, long after the surge had ended, that the Infinity Dragon God made the decision and walked away eastward. The Hero Faction Hideout Night. In another location, the so-called Hero Faction of human sacred gear users were plotting something that would bring harm to the beings in the supernatural world to ensure humanity's safety. The first is a handsome young man with short black hair and blue eyes. He wears a combination of a Japanese school uniform and ancient Chinese attire. His name is Cao Cao, the descendant of Cao Cao from the Three Kingdoms era and the leader of the Kao's Brigade's Hero Faction. The second is a 2-meter tall man with a well-built body and shoulder-length gray hair. He wears what appears to be an attire of a Japanese school uniform, covered by what could possibly be Greek-inspired armor. His name is Heracles, a member of the Hero Faction and carries the spirit of the Greek mythological hero Heracles. The three is a handsome young man with silver-white hair and red eyes, dressed in a green military-like uniform. His name is Siegfried, a member of the Hero Faction. The last one is a beautiful young foreign woman with blonde hair and sky-blue eyes. She wears a girl gakurin with armor worn on top of it. Her name is Jean, a member of the Hero Faction and carries the spirit of the Maiden of Orleans, Joan of Arc. As they planned who to attack first, they all suddenly felt a wave of energy, unlike anything they'd ever sensed before. What in the world was that? Jean asked with widened eyes. I don't know, but whatever it was, it's powerful, Siegfried said with a bit of interest in his tone. Yeah, I think it's possibly one of those disgusting supernatural beings, Heracles stated in an arrogant racist tone, with a displeased expression at the thought. I don't know about Heracles, Cao Cao said to his fellow hero, as he had a look of curiosity on his face. Whatever we just felt didn't belong to anything supernatural being we're familiar with. he stated to his fellow heroes as they see their leader has a point. So then, Cow, what should we do about this new phenomenon? Siegfried asked as the rest of the team wanted to know. If it's a human who released this powerful energy, then we'll recruit them to our cause. Cow said before his grin turned darker. But if it's one of those disgusting things, we'll eliminate it for the sake of humanity, he said as this was getting interesting. Chaos Brigade Headquarters night. Meanwhile, at the terrorist organization, the three people were talking to one another in a random conversation. The first is a young man with short black and later reddish-brown eyes and an athletic build. He is most often dressed in ancient Chinese armor that was used during the Three Kingdoms period. His name is Deku, a monkey yokai and the descendant of Sun Wukong and the current Monkey King. The second is a bespectacled young man with blonde hair with a strand of hair across his face, who is usually dressed in a business suit. His name is Arthur Pendragon, a descendant of Morgan Le Fay and the legendary King Arthur. The last one is a cute, foreign girl with a slim body, shoulder-length blonde hair, and blue eyes. Her attire consists of a sorceress-like dress with a huge blue hat with a black bow and yellow stars and a matching cape with pink flowers and a white interior. Her name is Le Fay Pendragon, a witch who is a descendant of Morgan Le Fay and the legendary King Arthur. The members of Team Volley were enjoying themselves peacefully like they normally do until a massive of unknown energy quickly washed over them, making the three stop their conversation to process what they just felt. Okay, now that was weird, Deku commented while breaking the silence after feeling that unknown power washing over them. Yes, it was indeed, Arthur said calmly as he pushed up his glasses. What in the name of our great ancestor was that strange power we just felt? Le Fay yelled out in confusion over that weird energy. Do you have any idea what that was, Arthur? Because it didn't feel like magic or any other power I'm familiar with. She asked her older brother for his opinion. To be honest, Le Fay, I'm not entirely sure, Arthur said in an unsure tone. But let's hope Volley didn't feel this powerful as well. Yeah, knowing Volley, he might go and challenge this unknown power source to a fight, Deku said, talking about their leader's bad habit of fighting anything that catches his interest, with the two Pendragon siblings nodding in agreement. Underworld night. Somewhere in the underworld, a young man with dark silver hair and ice blue eyes also felt the source of unknown power. He is wearing a dark green V-neck shirt with a high-collared black leather jacket over it. He also wears burgundy jeans with a silver chain drooping down over them and black leather chaps with 3 bands encircling his right calf, and wears black shoes with black buckles. His name is Volley Lucifer, the remaining descendant of the original Lucifer. He is the wielder of the Longinus, divine dividing, being the possessor of the vanishing dragon, Albion. Do you feel that? The voice of Albion asked Volley, as his partner had been flying back to the Griori headquarters after going out to see one of the few beings he had considered a friend of his, Deku the monkey yokai of the mountain of flower and fruit. Volley possessed the ability to teleport back to the headquarters, but he never did. Years ago, Volley had decided to never teleport anywhere unless it was absolutely necessary, since teleporting to places meant that there was a chance that he could miss something interesting happening. And Volley considered this immense surge of power to be, in the weakest terms possible, very interesting. Yes, Volley mentally replied back to the dragon within his sacred gear, trying to suppress the overwhelming desire to find what was releasing all of this power and challenge it to a duel. What was that? Albion's voice was astounded by this power he was feeling. Volley's eyes widened at this new piece of information. A being that was as strong as a god was already enough to make Volley wish to fight it. But hearing Albion, a legendary dragon who had been around for thousands of years and fought against the armies of the 3 supernatural forces of the Christian pantheon, possesses a power to possibly be stronger than the one true dragon and the dragon god while quivering in surprise. Volley's emotions were torn between wanting to never come across the possessor of this power and wanting to challenge it above all else, which led to Volley's next question. Do you think we have a chance at defeating whoever is wielding this power? Volley asked his partner like a little kid wanting a new toy. I don't know, Albion answered in an unsure tone. Volley, whatever is releasing this power, whatever holds this strength, we have to be very careful if we ever encounter it. Volley stopped flying and hovered there for a moment. Volley had always been aware that there were beings in this world that he would have to train and had to work hard in order to surpass, but, apart from Off-Eyes, Albion had never said it would be impossible to defeat them. Albion had claimed that defeating beings like Zeus, Thor, Hades, and even Great Red were within the realms of possibility. But Albion had said he was unsure if they could defeat this being. That meant that this being was possibly far beyond the strength of gods and the one true dragon. A few more minutes passed before Volley started flying once more, this time towards the direction of the power source. Albion said nothing as his host continued flying towards the horizon. He figured that, with his assessment, he had possibly just damaged a part of his Veil's psyche that he held above all other things, his pride. Volley was proud that he possessed the divine dividing, and he was proud to be able to be strong enough to hypothetically defeat gods. Volley was proud that he was possibly the strongest possessor of the divine dividing that would ever live. And above all, Volley was proud that he was amongst one of the strongest beings in the world because of the power Albion that resided within him. But now Albion, the source of Volley's power and pride, has basically said that it wasn't enough and would never be enough to defeat this new source of power. Albion knew that he should attempt to stop the young devil, human hybrid, from attempting to find this source of strength, but he knew that his host wouldn't hear him. He was too lost in his own world of shattered pride and had zoned out ever since they had stopped hovering. The vanishing dragon sighed. He could only hope that whatever being was releasing this strength wouldn't kill Volley upon first sight. He had grown fond of his host. Their battle continued as the three of them exchanged and dodged one another's punches, kicks, weapons, and magical attacks, with the high-class devil eventually losing patience and trying to launch a volley of dark orbs and other spells in his arsenal at his opponent. But Ren and Midoriya used their superhuman agility and surrounding of the trees to thought processing to not only dodge magical spells but also land a few good hits on the man, then double punch him in the face, making the devil crash on the ground in pain. Damn, they're pretty fast for two humans, the high-class devil murmured in annoyance as he got back up and extended his wings before he flew into the air. You stupid brats won't continue to make a fool out of me, he screamed before summoning another volley of dark orbs aimed at the heroes. Midoriya and Ren quickly retired behind a bunch of trees to take cover from the barrage of dark orbs, but they knew their cover wouldn't let for as the forest three were easily being broken by the second. What's the matter, humans? Is hiding like rats the only thing you know how to do? The high-class devil mocked the humans as he continued his assault on the rangers. Then the two rangers quickly took a glance at one another from the spots they were taking cover at and did a quick nod, as both Ren and Midoriya knew what the other was thinking before executing their plan. Jungle Tonfa, Ren shouted, pulling out two tonfas in his hands, before running out to deflect and dodge each dark orbs coming at him with great skill. Hey, your dodgeball skills stink, the Blue Ranger said, getting the high-class devil's attention onto himself. I'll show you dodgeball, the high-class devil yelled back, before throwing more attacks at him. At the same time, Ren ran out to distract the devil, and Midoriya pulled out a boost key from his belt waist with his right hand. Time to try out this key's power next, Midoriya said, opening up the mouthpiece on his weapon. Sprint Dino key, ready, he said while holding up the boost key, before unfolding the key and inserting it into his saber, then quickly pulled the lever handle up and down to activate the key's power with pieces of armor materializing on his right arm and shoulder. Sprint streak, Midoriya said while moving out of cover and running straight through the magical bombardment in a red super fast blur, evading even shot from the devil hunter with ease. When the Red Ranger was underneath the high-class devil, he jumped up into the air in a quick blur, appearing on top of the devil that took him by surprise as he didn't notice the ranger getting the drop on him, while dealing with his teammate. Midoriya then dove straight down behind the high-class devil and quickly cut off all four of his wings, as it makes the man cry out in pain while falling hard on the ground. Midoriya landed back perfectly on the ground and turned to his own opponent, who was struggling to get back up. And sorry, those weren't important, were they? Midoriya said in a fake apologetic voice, which only pissed off the devil. My wings. You cut off my gorgeous wings. The high-class devil shouted out in horror and rage that he lost his symbol of being a high-class devil, before looking at the ranger with a nasty glare. Do you know how hard it was for me to attend these wings to become a high-class devil? Not really. But does it really matter now? Midoriya said, shrugging his shoulder as he didn't care. This only infuriated the high-class devil hunter even more before he charged at Midoriya in a fit of blind rage to kill him. But Ren Spiral jumped upside down in the air and landed in front of the high-class devil, before quickly spinning both tonfas in his hands to strike the tips into the devil's chest, knocking him back, making him slide his feet on the ground to stop himself. Don't forget about me, fuckface, Ren said, getting into a combat stance while spinning both his tonfas back in place. This can't be happening right now, the high-class devil said, holding his chest in pain, as he couldn't believe that two humans could do this damage to him. How are two humans this strong? He asked the rangers. That's something you'll find out the bad way, Ren exclaimed as he and Midoriya dashed towards the man. The high-class devil attempted to block the attack, but Ren overpowered the block with one strike from his right tonfas that gave him a clear opening for an uppercut to the devil's chin with his left tonfas, before spinning around and slightly lowering his body to right elbow jab the man in the stomach, as the high-class devil doubles back in pain. Midoriya soon came up to the devil, holding his blade in a reverse-handed grip to slash the man by swinging his sword from the right, then span his body around to the left while slashing him again, right before Ren grabbed a hold of the devil's right arm and twisted his left arm around the high-class devil to keep the man in place. Ren then punches the devil in the stomach hard with his right fist, before the ranger shifts his body upwards to the left while spinning upside down in the air to kick the high-class devil in the face with his right leg, as Ren lets go of his hold on the man. The devil didn't get a moment to recover, with Midoriya running back up to him, then backhand slashing him 3 times, which makes the devil fall back on the ground again in pain. "Hey, I just found my new thing to do, Ren," Midoriya jokingly said, while turning to Ren. "Why not?" Ren said, playing alone with his partner, while pointing Midoriya's way. "You insects." The high-class devil yelled out and tried to get back up, only to attack the rangers with a large dark orb. This got their attention, with Midoriya stopping the assault by cutting the orb in half with a downward slash that flew past him and his teammate, and Ren leaping over at the devil to kick him away in the chest, which sends him back a few feet. "Hey, Midoriya, let's try out that combo attack we've been working on," Ren suggested to him as he put away his weapons. This got Midoriya's attention, as his eyes were sparkling with excitement over the thought alone. "You mean that move?" "Yeah, let's try it out," Midoriya said in agreement as he removed his boost key effects from his right arm and returned the Chroma Fury saber back to its hilt. One for all, full cowl 20%. He activated his quirk with sparks of bio-green electricity surrounding the ranger's body, as he was clearly pushing his limits a bit. "Spirit of the Jaguar," Ren shouted as his whole body was surrounded by a blue aura again. Then the red and blue rangers crouched down a bit, before leaping high into the sky over the forest trees, with the high-class devil slowly retaining his footing to witness what the rangers were doing in the air. Then both Ren and Midoriya simultaneously perform a somersault together in perfect sync, before extending both of their right legs out while rushing down at the devil to aim 2 kicks at him. "Double power kick smash," Ren and Midoriya shouted together, with the both of them gathering up speed and momentum, as they fell straight down from the sky and began to quickly circle around one another to create a giant purple drill-like hurricane covered in green electricity, combined with both of their powers together for a special combo move. The high-class devil could do nothing but watch with his eyes widened in dread, as the double power kick smash made direct contact with his chest, shattering every single bone in the devil's chest area, causing a powerful shockwave effect that made him hurtle back high into the air like a cannonball, making him cry out in unbelievable pain, with both the rangers sliding their feet simultaneously on the ground to stop themselves in place. Then suddenly, the high-class devil blew up in the sky, a giant fiery explosion ending his life. Ren and Midoriya soon to morph back to normal in their regular clothes, with the explosion in the sky dying down. "Wow, that was some nice fireworks right there," Ren said, pumping his fist down in joy. "Yeah, but whatever these guys we just fought wasn't human. I mean, they had wings, using magic, and exploded after defending them." Midoriya said he was curious about the enemies they just fought. "True, only non-humans do that when rangers beat them," Ren said, placing a finger under his chin. "Those devils they found against weren't as strong as Kyoka or Sayla, but were still good enough to give both a challenge. This world is different, not normal, and we're going to need to know why we're here in the first place," Ren said to him. "That means our first move is gathering information on where we are," Midoriya said with a nod. "Well, that was surprisingly quite the battle you two just won," a female voice said, startling Midoriya, and Ren's eyes widened from the unexpected voice. "What 2 interesting humans I've found." The 2 Power Rangers immediately turned to the source of the voice and saw the same woman from before they just saved, who leaning against a tree due to her injuries and collar around her neck. But now that more noticed, she was a very attractive woman with large black cat ears, hazel eyes with feline slits for pupils, and twin tails similar to someone with a mutant-type quirk that any guy would kill to have a chance to date her. Midoriya found himself staring at the cat women with a large blush on his face. He felt his whole brain shut down at the sight he was beholding. Contrary to popular belief, Izukumidoriya was more aware of the female body than many of his classmates, though he didn't show it as much as Maita. He would occasionally steal glances at his classmates, especially when they were doing hero coursework. The way Uraraka's suit hugged against her body, the way Mina's outfit made her look cool, and the most obvious one, Momo's rather exposing outfit. Hell, he even stared at Tsuyu, Yui, Jiru, and the Class 1B girls a few times when they wore cute outfits. He was a growing teenager, so it was only natural he would appreciate feminine looks. But Kyoka's beauty was something else entirely new to him as he shared at her in awe. Ren was doing much better than his friend next to him but was also stunned by looking at the beautiful young woman. She had long, raven black hair with split bangs and hair rings tied by an ornately detailed headband. Her attire consisted of a black, open-shouldered kimono tied by a yellow obi that seemed to struggle to support her rather impressive bust. The kimono had a red interior and was accessorized with large golden beads. She also wore black sandals on her feet. Perhaps the girl's most striking feature was her feline features. The ranger was doing him to not look at her in a perverted way, but couldn't help to look away from her before he spoke up. "Are you okay? You look in pain," Ren asked, seeing the injuries on her body and clothes torn up, which got Midoriya out of his shock and now replaced with concern. "My, aren't you sweet and handsome?" Worrying about this kitten, Kyoka said, seductively weak voice despite her injuries, as she led back again the tree she was holding onto before falling on her rear. Seeing this made Ren and Midoriya's eyes widen while rushed over to Kyoka in concern. "Whoa, easy. You're hurt, so don't push yourself," Midoriya said, kneeling down next to her, along with Ren who was observing her injuries. Kyoka chuckled weakly in response. "Thanks for the concern, but trust me, I've been through worse than this." She gave them a little smirk. "Your injuries don't look too bad, but," Ren said, looking at the red glowing collar around her neck. "What's this weird collar on your neck?" he asked the nekashu. "I don't know," Kyoka said with a frown across her face. "The moment they put it on me, I completely lost all of my strength." You don't say," Midoriya said with a hand over his chin, before changing his Dino Fury communicator into the Mystic Morpher and opening it up. "Let me see," he said, pointing his morpher straight at the red collar around Kyoka's neck. "What are you doing?" Kyoka asked Midoriya in curiosity, while eyeing his morpher, and could feel strange magic, unlike anything she felt before coming from it. Now that she thinks about it, the Nekomata could feel the same of both of them, along with different types of powers. Trying to see what this collar is, Midoriya answered, still eyeing his morpher, waiting for the results when his device rang. "I got it. My morphers tell me some kind of cursed collar that's designed to seal and rob a person of their magical power or other abilities," he explained to everyone. "I see. That explains why I can't access my senjutsu or magic," Kyoka said with a bit of frustration in her voice. "Senjutsu," Ren muttered to himself before looking at his friend to say something. "Midoriya, you said this collar was cursed, right?" he asked. "Yeah, that's what my morpher's telling me," Midoriya said with a nod. "But I don't think it'll be a good idea for either one of us to touch it though. We don't know how it might affect us." "Then I think I know what to do. Hopefully this might work," Ren said before standing up and pulling out a white battle armor key with his right hand. "That's the light Dino key," Midoriya shouted in amazement while standing back up too, as he figured out what Ren was planning to do. "So you planning on using that on the collar?" "That's the plan," Ren said to him with a nod and grin. "If it's magically related, then this key will get the job done." Kyoka's silence listened to the conversation, as she had no idea what they were talking about, but it sounded interesting either way. Then she saw the two humans looking directly at her, with the black-haired one holding up a strange key to her. "This is the light Dino key. It has the power to break magical curses on its target," Ren explained to the cat Yaokai, making her eyes slightly widen from the information. "With this Dino key, I can easily lift the curse on that collar. If you trust me too, that is a miss," he asked in a genuine tone. The cat woman looked directly at the humans and could tell they clearly weren't a threat to her after they saved her from the devil hunters. She couldn't move this damn collar on her own without some outside help. And not being able to use her senjutsu, yaojutsu, and magic was really starting to annoy Nekashu. So Kyoka just let out a light sigh with her eyes closed and decided to put her trust in these human kids for now. "Very well then," Kyoka said, reopening her eyes and looking at them. "Do what you have to. It's not like have any other better options available for me. Just don't be too rough on this bad little kitten." That last comment made Midoriya blush a bit, and Ren gave a smirk while chuckling. "Don't worry, I'll be gentle with you, since I'm a gentleman after all," Ren said, making her snicker a bit, before he pulled out the Mosa blaster with his left hand and held it up. "Light Dino key, ready." He unfolds the armor key and inserts it into his blaster, before pumping the muzzle on his morpher 3 times to charge up power. "Okay, this should do it," he said as his gaze went back to Kyoka. Then he pointed the blaster straight at the Yaokai devil, but more specifically the red collar around her neck. "I'm just aiming for the collar, so don't move an inch or else I'll hit you by mistake," Ren said with a smile, so she wouldn't be alarmed. "Everything going to be fine, I promise you." Confused and unsure, Kyoka contemplated on complying or not before going with it. His warm presence and disarming smile caused her to trust him as she sat up from her position and didn't move a muscle. She wasn't bothered by the amount of skin she showed, but her cheeks gained a light blush when she felt his gaze on her. Kyoka then nodded back to him, but her heartbeat was racing in anxiety for having a weapon pointed at her. White Fury Blast. Spellbreaker, Ren shouted before pulling the trigger on the Mosa blaster to fire a beam of light straight at the red collar around Kyoka's neck. When the light beam made contact with the red cursed collar, its red glow completely stopped as the collar turned gray before crumbling away into dust, lifting the curse on the black cat yokai. Kyoka's right hand reacted over to her throat, with her golden eyes slightly widened when the collar was gone and could feel her sealed power returning back. But before she could do thing any further, Midoriya pointed his mystic morpher at her. Finitio, Midoriya said, casting the healing spell on her, as green magical energy came out of his morpher and started to surround Kyoka's body, with all of her injuries beginning to heal up. Kyoka looked to the bruised and scuffs on her starting to slowly vanish from sight, along with the pain from her injuries. Must be some sort of healing spell, Kyoka thought to herself, as a few more seconds completely healed all her wounds. So how do you feel? Midoriya asked with his usual smile. Better now. Thanks for that little pick-me-up, Kyoka said to him with a genuine smile, then stood up attempting to walk. Kyoka felt her legs give out from under herself and nearly fell on the ground. If it wasn't for the Ren catching her at the last second, the SS criminal would have fallen on her rear. Whoa, easy there now, Ren said, holding on to the adult woman, completely ignoring how close he was to her. Your injuries may have been healing, but you still need to recover your stamina, he said to her. The Nekishu couldn't help but agree with that statement while clicking her tongue in frustration, as that stupid collar drained most of her senjutsu and magic power, so she would be able to move like she normally does until most of her power returns. Thanks for that, Kyoka said, pushing herself off Ren and led back onto a tree. Ren and Midoriya couldn't help but stare at her torn kimono in the Nekishu's current position, showing her bombshell of a body. Kyoka noticed this and gave a teasing smirk. See something you like, Kyoka said, leaning down a bit, all the while leaving her breasts dangling in their eyesight. I can show you more if you both like, she whispered huskily at them. I wasn't staring at your sea chest or anything. ISS sorrow, Midoriya cried in a mad blush while waving his arms around like crazy. Kyoka was fighting back the urge to laugh, as the green-haired human was giving the best reaction she'd ever seen. Ren, on the other hand, kept a neutral expression but a slight blush on his face, as he was trying to not play into the woman's mind games until like his green-haired friend. He then thought of something that came to his mind, before changing his morpher into the Samuraiser. Your kimono torn up a bit. Let me fix that for you, Ren said, opening his Samuraiser and starting to write the kanji for repair in the air, in red, before standing it straight into the devil Nekishu's kimono. Then in a brief flash of light, Kyoka's kimono was good as new with all the tears, dirt, and holes completely gone. Kyoka blinked in surprise to see her clothes repaired like that, even though she could have done the same thing with her magic power. That power he just used wasn't anything she felt before, and she was getting even more curious about their abilities. Why, aren't you sweet and handsome? Kyoka asked seductively as she drew a bit closer to Ren, looking into his dark gray eyes. She runs a finger across his chest while smirking devilishly. I am, aren't I? Ren asked with a smirk in a fake confused tone. Handsome guy, beautiful girl. It's a pleasure to meet you, miss. Call me Kyoka. Handsome, Kyoka said with a light purr. I'll call you whatever you want me to, because you're stunning, woman, Ren declared, making Kyoka just giggle at his forwardness. Yeah, I thought you'd like that, he said in an amused tone before saying something else. The name's Ren Amamiya, but you can be Ren. And this guy over here is my friend, he said as Midoriya just recovered from his embarrassment a bit. My name is izukumidoriya, Midoriya said, still blushing a bit from her appearance. It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am. You can drop the ma'am part. It makes me sound old, Kyoka replied back to him. Alright, sorry. Midoriya apologized quickly to her. So Kyoka, what happened to you just now? Why were those men after you? He asked her in curiosity. It's a long story, Kyoka told them, acting affronted at Midoriya's tone while walking back from Ren a bit. I bet it is, Ren muttered out loud as he had something to ask her. I know this goes without saying, but it's pretty obvious that you're not human or those men we just fought, he said to her, getting a giggle from her. I could say the same about the two of you, Kyoka crookedly. Riley grinned at Ren's reply and began. Just who are you both? I've met dragons, youkais, great satans, fallen angels, and even angels. But the both of you don't smell like any of them aside from being human. Yet the aura you're giving off is unlike anything I've felt before. She circled around the two boys, looking at them, but mostly Ren, from head to toe like they were a rare slab of meat on a silver platter before stopping right in front of Ren. "So who are you both?" the dark-haired Nekishu asked again. Hearing this made both rangers blink in surprise at her words. There are dragons, angels, devils, and fallen angels in this universe. Just what kind of world did they end up in this time? The two boys looked at each other for a second, then nodded something to one another in agreement before turning their gaze back on Kyoka. It's a bit complicated to explain," Midoriya said nervously in a vague answer, making the cat woman tilt her head a bit, confused before he continued. "Even if we told you, Kyoka, you wouldn't believe us. What's so complicated that you can't tell me?" Kyoka said in a fake hurt tone, which made Midoriya blush a little from her teasing. "He means we're unique." Ren jumped into the conversation. "The both of us are truly one of a kind in this world, kitty cat, and you'll never meet another one like us again. I can guarantee you that," he said, making the Kyoka even more curious and confused. "Also, here's some word of advice, Kyoka. The saying, 'Curiosity kills the cat' exists for a reason." "What do you mean?" Kyoka said as her expression of concentration did not waver, but the tone of confusion displayed her actual emotion right now. "We bear secrets, Kyoka. Very dangerous secrets. Ones that could shake this enough world to its very core. Which is why we can't just tell anyone, even people we just met," Midoriya said with a bit of a serious tone. Kyoka, who gave them a searching look at what they said to her. She bit her lips slightly with a small pout, trying to figure the two humans out and what they were hiding from her. "Kyoka," Midoriya said, snapping her out of her funk. "I hate to ask this, but do you have a safe place for you to stay tonight?" he asked shyly to her. "It's just that, you don't look like you can defend yourself right now, and we can't just leave you alone, not as you are now," Ren said to her, which surprised the woman. "Are you both offering to protect me until I recover my power?" Kyoka asked in disbelief, as she didn't expect that from the two boys. "Of course, we're heroes after all," Midoriya said with his usual bright smile. "Even though I'm not human?" Kyoka asked, tilting her head to the side. "It doesn't matter to us either way," Ren said, shrugging his shoulder with a smile. "Helping those in need is what we rangers do best. And if those guys come back for you again, we'll just send them packing." Hearing all this made Kyoka smile a bit, as she felt that she could trust these two humans in front of her that just saved her life from the devil hunters. "Ren and Midoriya, was it? You two really are the most interesting humans I've ever encountered," Kyoka said with a little giggle as her eyes were closed. "Very well then, I'll accept your offer of protection until my power returns," she said to them before pointing to the north. "Not too far from here is a place I usually stay at when I'm in the area." "Is it safe?" Ren asked her, getting a nod from the Nekishu. "It's abandoned and no one's been around there for years, so yes," Kyoka confirmed to them. "All right, then, lead the way," Midoriya responded to both of them. "Sure thing," Kyoka said with a purr. With that said, Kyoka walked ahead of them before gesturing at the human boys to follow her, to which both Ren and Midoriya complied. They would keep Kyoka safe for now until she was good enough to take care of herself before returning back to their world. VOICEOVER Occult Research Club night. Later that night, Riaz and Sona sat around a small table, where the sound of tapping could be heard every so often. Silence reigned between the two as they continued to stare at the chessboard they were both seated around, each lost in their thoughts. It was Riaz who finally broke the silence. "We have a problem," Riaz said to her childhood friend and rival. "Oh? And what sort of problem is that, Riaz?" Sona answered back. "Don't play stupid, Sona, it doesn't suit you. I know you felt that massive spike of energy earlier," Riaz said with seriousness. "Guilty as charged, I am afraid. What do you wish to do?" Sona said, moving another piece on the board. Riaz just let a frown form across her face before moving her rook to take out Sona's bishop, who immediately reciprocated and took her opponent rook with her last remaining knight. "We'll do nothing for now, since it isn't in our territory yet. If the perpetrator proves to be a threat, we take them out. If not, I could certainly use all the help I could get." Maybe it was a new sacred gear. Even Akino couldn't identify just what type of energy it was giving off. It was not holy or demonic. That much was certain, nor was it the tainted light that the fallen wielded. Riaz began to speak after a few moments of silence, no longer even paying attention to the chess match before her as Sona moved to checkmate her king. "I win again," Sona said, earning a groin from her rival. "But you're right about that mysterious energy. Whatever it was enough to shake my queen to her core," she said, remembering how scared Tsubaki and her other servants were from feeling that unknown energy. "We need to stay alert on this one, Riaz. We have no idea what it is we're dealing with this time around. So no being reckless like you normally do." She spoke with seriousness in her voice. "I know, Sona. I'll have a few familiars and my servants keep a watchful eye out around the city to monitor the situation," Riaz said, crossing her arms under her chest. But think about it for a moment, Sona. Whoever released that unknown power could make an excellent addition to one of our peerages, she said with interest. Sona didn't share her friend's enthusiasm, but couldn't deny that even her interest was piqued by this unknown power. Whatever it was, she just hoped it wouldn't be a problem. You are right about whoever has this power would make an excited servant, but I suggest that we don't bother them. There is something really dangerous about this, Sona warned her friend. Oh Sona, you don't have to say those words if you want to add whoever this is in your peerage. If I ask them nicely, I'm sure they will join my peerage. I will offer them anything if that is what I have to do, Riaz nonchalantly said and did not listen to her friend's warning. I see. Sona sighed in resignation at her friend's stubbornness. So you are really desperate to get out of your engagement, huh? I need a powerful piece, Sona, strong enough to defeat that bastard Riser. If they could grant me the freedom I want, I'll make sure they join my peerage, Riaz answered with conviction. I hope that you know what you're doing, Riaz. Be sure that your plan won't bite you back. Good luck, Sona said, ending the conversation and leaving the room. There was silence in the room. Riaz proceeded to look outside from the window and into the night sky. Riaz looked in the distance where the power came from with greedy eyes, hoping to meet the one responsible for this unknown power and make them into her servant. Abandoned Shinto Temple Night. After 15 minutes of walking in the forest, Kyoka eventually led the two heroes to an abandoned Shinto temple. Judging by the looks of it, it didn't look like anybody had come here in a very long time. Just like she said to them. Yeah, this looks like a perfect place to hide out from people, Ren thought to himself as the three of them walked up some staircases. This place is pretty creepy, but different, a good hideout for sure, Midoriya thought to himself with a worrisome grin while walking aside his friend. Soon the three reached the top of the staircase and got a better look at the abandoned temple. So, you live here? Midoriya asked, rather nervous since I was still trying to cope with his surroundings. The woman then sighed. This was the temple dedicated to an old mountain spirit. Unfortunately, when people lost faith in the old ways, they left it behind, Kyoka said sadly. Makes sense, Ren said out loud before looking at the woman. How long do you think your power will fully recover? He asked. About a day or two, if I don't use it too much, Kyoka said, feeling the amount of power she had left. Then let's head inside, so you can rest, Kyoka, Ren suggested to them, getting a nod from her in return. As they were about to enter the shrine, Ren and Midoriya both froze in place when the wind picked up, and a low growl echoed through the trees as they felt something was off right. Their battle instincts were telling them something was wrong in the area. Kyoka, stop, Ren said in a serious tone that made the yakai woman stop in her tracks. What's wrong? Kyoka asked in concern as she noticed the intense look in their eyes. We're not alone. There's something here, Midoriya muttered nervously, but was not sacred in the slightest. In fact, this whole temple is surrounded by multiple people, he said, making her eyes widen. Naya, but how did the devils get in here without me noticing? Kyoka asked in surprise because she didn't feel there were presents nearby. She maybe tried, but she wasn't that tried to not notice her surroundings. Don't know, but be ready for anything, Ren said in his leader tone, as he and Midoriya got in front of her to look around, scanning the area for the many enemies hiding among them. Then a crowd of strange black lizard-like monsters and pawn conquistador-themed foot soldiers suddenly appeared in front of them, out of hiding, and their eyes widened in shock from who it was attacking them. No way. Tyrannodrones, Midoriya cried out in shock. And henjimen. Ren also cried out in equal shock. You know what these things are? Kyoka asked, eyeing the creatures in curiosity, as this was something she'd never seen before and these two seemed to knowledgeable about them with how they reacted just now. More or less, Ren said with him, and Midoriya got into a fight stance. But I can tell you one thing is that they're bad news. Kyoka, stay back and let us handle this. You have no idea how dangerous these guys are, Midoriya said to the Black Nekomata. No, Kyoka said, walking up next to the two of them. I wanna help too, she declared, surprising the two rangers that she wanted to fight as well. You sure about this, Kyoka? You're not even back at 100% to fight probably, Ren asked as they noticed the Tyrannodrones and henjimen slowly approaching them dangerously. I may have been weakened, but it's not even to slow me down from beating these things, Kyoka said before flaring up her magic a bit as she was giving off a dangerous aura. But I think I deserve an explanation from the two of you when this is over, she said to the two humans. Okay fine, but only if you answer some of our questions as well too, Ren said back to her. We have a deal then, Kyoka delightfully said in agreement. I know you said you can handle yourself, but still be careful with the Tyrannodrones and henjimens. They may not be strong enough to beat someone like you, but they make up for it with their numbers alone, Midoriya warned her, getting a nod from the yakai woman. Alright guys, showtime. Ren declared with him and Midoriya dashing bravely at the enemy as the Tyrannodrones and henchmen did the same in return, while Kyoka stood back and extended her arms out to her sides with over a dozen purple magic circles appearing all around her. Ren ran forward to the nearest enemy with one of the Tyrannodrones' scythe-like arms at him, only for the teen to kick the monster away in the stomach, then block the second Tyrannodrone's attack with his left arm before swiftly countering with a quick punch to monster's cheat, knocking it over. Then suddenly, a henchman rushed at Ren with its spear pointing straight towards him to impale the ranger. "Hiya!" Ren cried out while kicking the spear away with his right leg to stop the assault. He used the momentum of the kick to spin around for a roundhouse to the henchman's face with his other leg, sending the monster twirling on the ground. Ren quickly ducks under another henchman's attack while moving a few steps forward, then blocks two incoming attacks on his left side from a Tyrannodrone with his hands, right before kicking away a henchman on his right side. The boy immediately ran to the right side of the temple, straight at a henchman who had his shield out in an attempt to stop the boy. But Ren leaped on top of the shield and used it like a springboard to spiral front flip over multiple foes, landing at a safe distance before twirling himself over to the side while avoiding another enemy attack. Both the Tyrannodrone and henchman jump right at both of his sides for a killing strike, with Ren raising both of his arms out to stop and hold off the attacks, as both his arms glow a flash of blue light when the monsters hit him, showing blue triceratops skin scales on Ren's arms. This power belongs to Ethan James, the Blue Dino Ranger. Due to the Blue Dino gem, Ethan has the power to make his skin impenetrable and as hard as a rock, similar to the scales of a triceratops. His skin turns scale-like and goes blue when he uses this power. "Now it's my turn, Tia," Ren yelled out before using his strength to push back both of the foes next to him. The Hero Force Ranger uses the opening to quickly strike both monsters in their chests with his arms while using Triceratops skin power that knocks them away. Then Ren did the same thing to 6 more enemies coming at them with his arms flashing blue every time he hit an opponent. Ren then turned from a henchman he just knocked down with a fury of punches to notice a Tyrannodrone's coming at him for a charge attack, before taking it down on the floor by swiftly swinging around its body. He immediately noticed a henchman coming at him from behind, with the ranger swinging his right arm back at the enemy, taking the creature off guard as it flowed back hard into a tree. Ren's instincts picked up something coming at him from behind and he leaped backward while spiraling in the air before right-kicking a henchman down, with a Tyrannodrone charging at him with a right kick. But the ranger quickly span backward to dodge the kick and grab the grunt's leg, before immediately swiping the Tyrannodrone's other leg to make it fall down on its back as Ren was still holding onto the grunt's legs. "Time mop up this dirty floor," Ren said as he began to drag the Tyrannodrone on the ground like a broom, before tossing the grunt over to a broken object that took it out of commission. "Now it's clean," he commented with a grin. Midoriya leapt at 2 henchmen for a spin, kicking at one of them with his right foot, then the other one with the left foot that makes them tumble on the ground. He then punches a Tyrannodrone in the face on his left and a second Tyrannodrone in the face on his right, before grabbing both a Tyrannodrone and henchman by their necks to lift them up in the air as they struggled in the ranger's gaps. "Time to fly, Hiya," Midoriya said before throwing the 2 monsters over to the side as they crashed on the floor hard. Now he was surrounded by 3 Tyrannodrones, with Midoriya squatting down to extinct a right leg swoop at the first Tyrannodrone, then using the momentum of his attack to shift his body over the second Tyrannodrone and leg swoops the grunt with the back of his right foot, as the ranger got up from the ground before jumping up and spinning to the right to whirlwind kick the third Tyrannodrone with his right foot, making the 3 Tyrannodrones fall over in an instant. The ranger then turned his attention back on a Tyrannodrone coming on his right side for an attack with him handspring backward, while stopping the monster's attack with his leg and making the Tyrannodrone fall over. Midoriya continues to perform multiple backward handsprings, avoiding enemies' attacks in the process before using his hands to push himself high in the air above multiple enemies to try something creative. "Black Whip," Midoriya shouted while crossing his arms together with his hands balled into fists, before extending out his hands to launch 10 black whips from his fingers at the Tyrannodrones and henchmens on the ground that wraps them up to retain their movements. Midoriya then spanned his body at top speed in midair to pull the 10 monsters he captured in his quirk around like merry-go-round ride, before releasing his quirk hold on the monsters, sending them scattering into multiple distractions, taking them out as he landed gracefully on the ground. He looked up and smirked a bit at his work before spinning to the left to kick an incoming henchman in the chest, then dropped on his left knee to dodge a swing from a Tyrannodrone's scythe-like arm. as is counter-attacking the monster with an elbow to the stomach that makes it tumbles back a bit before whirlwind kicking the monster on the ground while standing back up with a smirk. "You didn't think it'd be that easy, did you, punks?" Midoriya said, looking back at the fallen grunts with a victorious expression. Kyoka may not have that much magic use, but she wasn't completely defenseless, while used her senjutsu to shoot a barrage of bullets coming out of the magic circles behind her to take out most of the Tyrannodrones and Henjimens approaching her. But some of them was about to dodge, block, or resist her attacks, which forced Kyoka to change her tactics. Kyoka took a combat stance with all her manic circles disappearing. She punched at a Tyrannodrone from the left, then another one on her right after having to duck from a 3 Henjimen's spear thrust before spinning back to safety. The cat Yaokai then coded energy into her right hand, taking the form of dark claws, and swiped at all 3 of the Henjimen that attacked her, making them fly back into a group of enemies that knocked them down in an instant. When she notices a new group of enemies getting closer to the woman, Kyoka launches herself from the monster's assault by flipping backward with a purple mist formed around her right fist. The stone below the Tyrannodrone and Henjimen cracked open as dirt engulfed their feet, and hardened quickly to immobilize the monsters. "Come at me," Naya Kyoka goaded with a devilish smile on her face. The black Nekomata began to use more of her power as a symbol and appeared behind her, releasing dark energy shots at the immobile enemies, with each hit impacting their bodies and creating smoke to envelop them, with the monsters falling over dead. "Looks like they were easily dealt with, Naya," Kyoka said with a victorious grin, but was breathing slightly heavily as she used more of her power. She was really glad Ren and Midoriya were here helping her fight against these creatures, or else things would have gone differently for her in the worst possible way. Speaking of those two, she turned her attention to. Kyoka saw Ren and Midoriya tossing more enemies aside next to each other, flooring the monsters for good, with some of them backing away in concern. Soon the Tyrannodrones and Henjimens had enough of this fight, and the ones who survived the battle started to teleport away in a flash of purple light, and leaving with the defeated monsters left behind, bodies disappearing in a flash of darkness, leaving no trace of them left as Ren, Midoriya, and Kyoka are alone with each other at the now quiet temple. Then once everything had calmed down, the 3 of them regrouped with one another. "You two aren't half bad out there," Kyoka said, flashing them both a playful smile. "You definitely have a few tricks up your sleeves." "TT thanks, you got us some good moves of your own," Midoriya said back to her while rubbing the back of his head in slight embarrassment. "Yeah, that's some interesting magic you got there," Ren said as he was impressed by her skills before his smile turned into a concerned look. "But still, what are Tyrannodrones and Henjimens doing here in the first place?" "The Tyrannodrones were destroyed years ago when Mesagog was defeated, and the Henjimen boost key was recovered after Void Queen was stopped," Midoriya said in a thinking pose, as he was trying to figure this out. "Nothing about this makes any sense. This isn't even a ranger world. So what are old ranger enemies doing here?" he asked out loud. "Don't know, but this isn't the first time a destroyed villain come back from the dead," Ren said as he remembered a number of old ranger enemies coming back alive in multiple ways. Midoriya nodded in agreement before saying something. "Yeah, there's the reanimizer or magic that ranger villains use to bring back old enemies." "You think it's likely that Grid sent us here to investigate this issue?" he asked his leader. "Probably. I mean, it only sends us to places if there is trouble. And concerning that old ranger villains are here in this world, then it's our responsibility to stop them," Ren said with confidence, as his friend nodded in agreement. "This is a problem only the 2 of us can solve, and stop whoever is even here." Midoriya agreed with a serious expression on his face. Kyoka just stood there in silence and was curious about what they were talking about. They were using terms she wasn't familiar with at all and seemed to be knowledgeable about these Tyrannodrones and Henjimens. Before anything else was said, Kyoka went on ahead, making Ren and Midoriya notice this as they turned their heads to her. "Let us head inside, that way we can talk," Kyoka said before stopping in place to look back at them. "Besides, you both need to explain to me about those monsters, Naya," she said before entering the temple. Midoriya and Ren looked at each other for a brief moment before following the black Nekishu inside the abandoned temple. After things were settled after the fight, the 2 rangers and the Yaokai woman were inside the temple, sitting on the floor in a circle. They make sure to check around the temple and see if there are no more Tyrannodrones and Henjimens in the area before doing anything else. The entire temple was pretty dirty and in bad shape from the looks of it, with a few old broken objects around the building. But nevertheless, it would do for them since it was the safe place for them to stay at the moment. To make sure no more unwanted guests show up, Kyoka used her remaining magic to put a barrier around the temple to hide their presence from the other powerful beings in this world. Now knowing that this place was alright to stay in, the 3 began their overdue conversation. Alright, before we explain who we are to each other, I want to make something very clear, Ren said as his tone was serious with the woman. No lies. You be honest with us and we'll return the favor. Can you agree to those terms? He asked her. Of course, Kyoka said with a nod. After both you and Midoriya risked your lives to protect me, I guess I can be a little cooperative for now, she said seductively with a cat-like purr. Okay, then do you mind letting us ask our questions first before asking yours? Midoriya asked the woman, as he mysteriously pulled out his notebook. Seriously, where does he keep that thing? Naya. Kyoka nodded back to him, letting the rangers go first with the questioning. What are you actually? Do you have cat ears and 2 tails? Plus, you can use multiple types of magic, unlike anything I've seen before. Also, those men we fought earlier had bat wings and were armed with magical weapons, as well as. Midoriya kept asking question after question, as his muttering habit was starting to kick in again. Kyoka just blinked in complete surprise at the green-haired boy muttering to himself out loud, while staring strangely at him in awe. Damn it, he's doing it again, Ren said, sighing at his friend's bad habit. Does he normally do this? Kyoka asked him while pointing at Midoriya, who was still muttering to himself. Unfortunately, yes, Ren said in a deadpan tone, before flicking Midoriya in the head to make him stop his muttering and holding his forehead in slight pain. You are doing it again, Midoriya, he said with a little annoyance in his voice. Midoriya then had a look of embarrassment with his face down on the floor. Sorry, you had to see the Kyoka. That tends to happen when something interesting catches my attention. He apologized to the Nekomata. Kyoka in response just giggles lightly at the sight of the embarrassed boy before speaking to him. Nyahaha, it's alright Midoriya. To be honest, I found what you did was pretty cute, she said, making the teen blush even harder from being called cute. But to answer your first question on what I am, she said, making her cat ears and twin tails flicking lazily back and forth. I'm a rare species of Nekomata. Nekomata, as in the cat-like yokai, Ren said, getting a nod from the woman. Correct, I'm what you call a nekishu, a rare type of Nekomata, Kyoka said, giving a playful smile at how Ren was about to figure it out so quickly. And the men you both fought not too long were devils, from the devil race, she said, making both boys intrigued with curiosity. Yaokais and devils, Midoriya said, writing this information in his notebook before looking up at her again for another question. I take it there are other races besides those two. Yes, there are the humans, angels, fallen angels, dragons, vampires, and a number of other species in the supernatural world, Kyoka said, making both rangers go still for a moment. Wait, so let me get one thing straight here to make sure we understand this. You tell us that every supernatural being in myth is real? Ren asked in slight amazement, with Midoriya feeling the same way. Yep, but I'm a bit surprised that you didn't know, Kyoka said with a confused look on her face. You two are far from normal humans, yet you don't know a single thing about the supernatural world. What is that supposed to mean? Midoriya asked with a raised eyebrow. The supernatural world is kept secret from the human race, except for a few humans who are already aware of its existence, like the church, magicians, and a few other human factions. But to regular humans, they think we're nothing more than make-believe fictional beings from stories, Kyoka explained to them, which stunned the two boys, learning that the humans in this universe were kept in the dark about the supernatural world. So how come you both don't know anything about the supernatural world, since you two are not average humans? She asked them. There's a very good reason for us not knowing anything about the supernatural world, and we'll tell you about it when it's your turn to ask questions, Ren said, getting a nod from her in response. So Kyoka, why were those devils chasing you for anyway? He asked her in curiosity. It's because I'm considered a stray devil, Kyoka stated, which made both Ren and Midoriya blink from hearing the last part. What's a stray devil? Midoriya was the one to ask, as this makes him and Ren wonder if devils are separated into groups or something like that. Stray devils are devils who have diverted away from their masters. Without their masters to keep their powers in check, they become a great threat if their powers go beyond their control. The devils take this case very seriously, and any devil who becomes a stray will be killed on the spot immediately, Kyoka explained to them, making both boys a little disturbed by the information. Well, I don't know what to say, Midoriya said to her. So the reason that group of devils chased you is because Ren was going to ask until he got a nod from her to confirm what he was going to say. It's because I'm a stray devil that is a threat to other devils. In fact, I'm the underworld's most wanted criminal at the moment, Kyoka confessed to them, as this got both concerns. What did you do to become a fugitive by the devils? Midoriya was kind of afraid to ask the question. I killed my former master, Kyoka responded without hesitation. Hearing this made both rangers' eyes widen in shock, looking at the Nekishu woman in both fear and shock as they just saved a murderer. They were about to jump up in defensive stances until Kyoka hastily raised her hands to stop the two rangers as she noticed the look they were giving her. "But please listen to what else I have to say first," Kyoka exclaimed hurriedly to them. "I killed him for a good reason," she whispered while lowering her head down to the floor. "It was to protect my little sister, Shiren," she said in a sad tone. Ren and Midoriya were taken back in surprise by what Kyoka said, as their bodies relaxed a bit to hear the woman out before jumping to conclusions. "You have a little sister," Ren repeated in disbelief, getting a nod from her. "And you were protecting her from your former master?" Midoriya asked, making her nod for a second time. "The reason why I killed my master was because he was planning to use my little sister for this twisted experiment," Kyoka explained with a serious and grave tone, making both boys flinch from hearing the word experiment. "Well, shit," Ren mumbled to himself in a low tone with his eyes on the floor, as he couldn't help but think of Eri at that moment. "Why would he want to do that to your sister?" Midoriya asked, as he was nervous to ask her, but he wanted to know the truth. "He was attempting to create a super devil by conducting tests on my sister to awaken her Yaojutsu and Senjutsu," Kyoka said in a slightly furious voice, while both Ren and Midoriya were disgusted by this information as this reminded them of Eri's situation. "I care about my sister more than anything in the world, and I didn't want a power-hungry man to harm her. So I killed him to protect her, but after that incident, they were gonna execute Shiren for my actions," she said in a low guilty voice with her ears dropping, as this got both Ren and Midoriya to look at her in sympathy, but also upset on how things played out for her. In order to confirm the truth, Ren closed his eyes to use the Red Wild Force Ranger's super senses to listen to Kyoka's heart. He could feel a number of negative emotions going on in Nekishu's heart, and could tell she was being completely honest with them. When he reopened his eyes, Ren's face had a deep scowl on it with his hands clenching into a fist by the truth. Midoriya noticed the look on his friend's face and knew what it meant, as he was starting to believe Kyoka's story with his own rage slowly showing. They were gonna execute her little sister, a girl she was protecting from a power-hungry man. Just how screwed up are the devils here? See, couldn't you have just explained things to them? Midoriya asked her nervously. "Maybe if you told devils your side of the story, it wouldn't have worked," Kyoka bluntly said, stopping Midoriya mid-sentence. "The moment I killed my former master, my fate was already sealed," she said to them with a frown across her face. Through their eyes, I was just a lowly reincarnated devil who got drunk on power and lost control of their mind. She looks at the two humans, and her golden eyes are like cold ice. "In fact, I don't think my mind has ever been as clear as it was at that moment. I knew what the consequences of my actions would be. They flashed through my mind in excruciating detail. But I also knew the consequences of not doing anything." Her fists clench in frustration. And between the two, it was an easy choice. "So it was either damn if you did, and damn if you don't," Ren commented out loud in frustration with his arms crossed. "You really didn't have a choice in the matter." He gave her a sympathetic look. "But what's a reincarnated devil?" he asked, as it sounded important. "That's right, you wouldn't know," Kyoka said with a low sigh before giggling to herself. "I didn't think our conversation wouldn't be going into a history lesson," she commented with a friendly smile. "Sorry, it's just we don't know that much about the supernatural world operations." Midoriya apologizes to her. Kyoka just shakes her head in response. "Don't worry about it. It's not your fault for not knowing," she stated before starting her explanation. "Before I go into detail about the evil peace system, you need to learn about the Great War," she said, making both rangers' eyes widen in shock. "There was a war," Ren and Midoriya both shouted together in sync. "Yes, but it happened many years ago before I was even born," Kyoka said as she giggled a little from their reactions. "The Great War was a terrible conflict that happened several millennia ago, between the three factions of the devils, angels, and fallen angels. There's a large dispute over who actually started it, but the general consensus is that the leaders of the devils, the four great satans, fired the first shot. But like with any war, there were only nothing but losses, Naya. All of the three factions lost their leaders and important figures as well, and the general casualties were near immeasurable," she explained, letting the information sink in for the two boys. "So what happened next? Who won the war?" Midoriya asked in curiosity. "There was no winner. The conflict ended in a ceasefire," Kyoka said, making the two boys blink in confusion, before continuing her story. "After the deaths of most of the three faction leaders as well as a massive loss in their main forces, the Great War finally ended, but it left the three factions in a state of conflict. However, due to a state of extreme exhaustion after the Great War and with all three sides being reduced in number gratefully, neither side wanted to continue battling or else it would lead to their extinction. she said, leaving a moment of silence in the air. Well, shit. That's a lot to take in, Ren said, rubbing the hair on his head at what he just heard. But what does that have to do with reincarnated devil? I was getting to that. As I said, the Great War left all of the factions on the verge of extinction, so the devils created the evil pieces system to replenish their numbers by reincarnating other species into devils, who would serve the high-class devil who is their king. As for the angel and fallen angels, they use a completely different method of reincarnating other species into their kind. Kyoka said as the two boys were beginning to understand this quickly before going more into detail about the evil pieces system, which took only a few minutes to explain. Ren only frowned in disguise as he didn't like the evil pieces system one bit. It's basically taking away a person's freedom and choices from them. Fascinating, Midoriya muttered quietly to himself while writing down everything that the Nekishu said about the evil pieces system. Before looking up at Kyoka, I would like to ask you more about the other two factions' method of reincarnation later, but I have a personal question to ask you. What is it, Naya? Kyoka asked the boy. How did you become a reincarnated devil in the first place? Midoriya asked a very good question, something that even Ren was curious about. There was a few seconds of silence until Kyoka finally spoke up to them. Fine, I'll explain. But I'll warn you, it's not a very pleasant story, Kyoka said with a tired sigh before telling her painful story. After the deaths of my parents, me and my little sister Cheyenne were left alone on our own and didn't have any other place to go. It was tough, making sure that my sister had enough to eat while we were moving from place to place, trying to survive. That is until we were given an offer to join the peerage of my former master. The truth is, being part of his peerage came with a condition. To be a subject in his experiments. I didn't have a lot of options with our parents gone, so I accepted his offer to take care of Cheyenne. She folds her arms under her impressive bust and looks away. So you accept the offer to keep your sister safe, Ren said to her. Yes, but I later learned that it was a big mistake to ever trust that man. His experiments were unpleasant, Kyoka said in disgust, remembering those awful experiments. They were painful and invasive. He kept pushing for me to continue growing stronger until I surpassed him in strength. I was about to make him stay happy. Cheyenne was safe, and I did manage to get stronger, so it was worth it in the end. Why do I feel like a butt is coming? Both Ren and Midoriya thought together as Kyoka's story was getting to the saddest part. But, Kyoka said, making both rangers mentally say the same thing in sync. There it is. Ren and Midoriya thought together with a frown. It wasn't until, Kyoka continues before stopping midway. Until what? Ren asked her, waiting for an answer. Until further experiments stopped showing results, even as they got worse. I hit a plateau, and he couldn't figure out why. Her expression turns dark, and both rangers can feel the anger coming off her, but it's a different kind of anger. One day, he decided the problem was a lack of data, that he was working with too few variables. So he went back on our deal, and decided he was going to start the same process on Cheyenne. Kyoka said, scoffing a bit, then shaking her head to calm down. I don't think he even remembered making a deal with me that she was off limits. The thought that there could possibly be a reason he couldn't use her as he used me didn't even occur to him. He brazenly stated his intentions in front of me after all. I suppose I had been so cooperative up to that point he didn't think twice about it. She stated that Midoriya and Ren already figured out what happened next. So you decide to kill him in order to protect your little sister, Midoriya said, sadly looking at her. But I still don't understand why he would do something that horrible. Simple, Midoriya. It was for power, Kyoka said while laughing dryly. That's the only thing the devil race cares about, is those with power. Like most supernatural species, the devils consider those with power the only thing that matters in their society. Hell, some of the more arrogant ones would even try to force others with unique abilities and powerful sacred gears to join their peerages just to boost their reputations, she said, making both boys have looks of disappointment in their eyes. That doesn't sound too different from our world with how people think quirks are everything. Midoriya thought with a frown at how similar the supernatural world was to theirs, but there was something he had to ask Kyoka real quick. Hey Kyoka, you never meant what sacred gears are to us yet. Now that's a simple question to ask. You see, sacred gears is an abnormal power only for a select few humans. They were created by the big man upstairs in order to perform miracles like magic, super strength, or healing, and most people who have possessed sacred gears have gone on to become well known throughout history. However, there are a select few that pose a threat to the supernatural, the most dangerous being the 13 Longinus, those being so powerful they can even kill gods. Kyoka explains, leaving the two rangers stunned by the information. Wow, talk about having some serious firepower, Midoriya commented while writing down in his notebook. Yeah, these sacred gears must be the real deal, Ren said with a nod before looking back at the yaokai woman. But getting back on track, what happened next after killing your master? He asked. Hiroka's expression turned into a sour one after resuming her story. After killing him, I ran and was labeled an SS criminal stray devil for the past few years. But Cheyenne was also praying for my crimes as well, and they were gonna execute her, until one of the great Satans stepped in to save her. She shakes her head, clearing her expression, and her anger recedes a bit. Cheyenne wasn't executed, but I haven't seen her since then. Hiroka, Midoriya said sadly as this was too painful of a story. So where is your little sister right now? Is she okay? Ren couldn't help but ask in concern. Cheyenne, fine. She a part of the peerage of the great Satan's little sister who saved her life, Hiroka said to them, calming down their concerns. But I still worry about her and come check on her from time to see if she's doing alright. I was actually on my way to that right now, until the devil hunters ambushed me earlier. Then you two showed up to save, which brings us to now. With that, the Tokume woman finished her story to the Rangers. There was an awkward silence for a moment as Kyoka ended up telling her painful life story to Midoriya and Ren, as they felt bad for her. She became a criminal just by protecting her sister by killing a devil who was hungry for power. She even felt guilty, and it is what caused her little sister's near execution. I know we're the ones that asked you, so it may seem strange for me to ask this now, but why did you tell us this? Midoriya asked nervously, as he never expected to get a full answer out of her. Hiroka laughs a little before speaking again. That is strange, but at the same time, it's a reasonable question. She shakes her head again before looking at them with a serious expression on her face. I don't know who you both are, but I do know one thing. You were the first people to ever hear me out and didn't judge me for what I've done. You even asked if Cheyenne was alright, even though you never met her. So, I'm willing to put my trust in both of you, she said to them with a warm smile. It's nothing RR really, Midoriya said with a blush on his face. Unfucking believable, Ren growled out while dragging his hand over his face, breaking his silence, somewhat startling the busty Nekashu girl across him. His fists were trembling with rage. This shit happened how long ago, and nobody even bothered to properly check into it. You're literally an innocent victim. Heck, I'd have done the exact same thing if I were in that position. Isn't there anyone else who's aware of this? He asked her, overcoming her shock, yet still staring at him in awe. Kyoka gave an uncharacteristically timid response. Not that I know of. All of my old peerage members died back then as well, and my sister was unaware of the experiments going on. Kyoka stated back to him. Didn't that a whole of a master keep any records of what he used to do? Ren continued to press the matter. I think he used to keep a journal for the experiments, Kyoka revealed while thinking back to her time there. It might still be at the lab, or someone may have gotten rid of it. That's still better than nothing at all, I suppose, Ren thought as a determined scowl came upon his face. I'll have to look more into this matter later, he thought before looking back at her. Kyoka, for what's it worth, we don't think of as criminal like those stupid devils, he said as she was just forcing herself to play the bad guy in order to protect her little sister. Yeah, if anything you're a hero, Midoriya added in as he wanted to say something too. Who knows what would have happened if he succeeded in creating a super-powered devil, he said, leaving the woman shocked by their words. Kyoka was now stunned by the two humans believing her story. So you both actually believe me? She asked in disbelief, getting a nod from the humans. You were dealt a bad hand in life, which forced you into the person you are now, Midoriya said to her in a soft tone. Besides, me and Ren know better than anyone what's it like to have unfair lives, he said, making her curious about what he meant. And like I said before, you are doing what you can for your little sister's sake. I can understand how you feel since I have a little sister myself, Ren said to her, making Kyoka's eyes widen. You have a sister? Kyoka asked the ranger, getting a nod from him. Yeah, but although we aren't related by blood, I still treat her like her family, Ren said while pulling out his phone and showing Kyoka a picture of proof with him and Eri together. Kyoka looked at the picture on the smartphone to see him and a long white-haired little girl with red eyes and a horn on her forehead. The white hair on the girl reminded Kyoka of her sister, but looking at this photo made her even more interested in learning more about him. What's her name? Kyoka asked him before pulling away his phone. It's Eri, and believe it or not, she actually experienced something similar to what you went through, Ren said, making the Nekashu flinch a bit as her hazel eyes widened again. What do you mean? Kyoka said in a slightly shaken tone. Ren and Midoriya's faces both turned into uncomfortable frowns with what they were about to tell her. It's complicated and very difficult to explain since how bad it was for Eri, Midoriya said sadly while his eyes were on the floor. It's much more easy if I just show you the memory than telling it, Ren said to her in a low tone. Show me how, Kyoka asked in confusion. Me and Ren both have the ability to see or transfer the memories of others and what they experience throughout their lives, Midoriya said, making the woman look impressed by what she heard. That's actually a pretty nifty ability you both possess, Kyoka said in an impressed tone, as she a few people who love to have an ability like that. Yeah, it does come in handy at times, Ren said before holding out his hand to Kyoka, which made her look at it. What I'm about to show you will be very unpleasant, so please prepare yourself for what you're about to witness. He warned her in advance because of how bad the memory is. Kyoka looked at his hand for a moment before slowly reaching out to her in a bit of hesitation, as she finally made physical contact with it and held onto the ranger's hand. Okay, here goes, Ren said quietly before using his telepathy to transfer the memories of Iri's time with the shy Hasekai. Upon seeing the memories, Kyoka immediately yanked her hand back with a complete look of horror on her face from seeing the memories. Then her gaze fell on Ren, hoping to get an answer. WW was what ISS saw real? Kyoka asked in an utter broken voice full of horror. Ren didn't say anything but nodded slowly back to her with a sad look on his face. Kyoka just looked at the boy in utter disbelief, as she couldn't believe that a group of humans could do something so horrific to a little girl who was barely over 5 years old. She would expect this type of behavior from the devils, but not humans. The Nekashu suddenly grimaced as she mentally visualized her little sister being in the same position as Iri, being experimented on almost every day. Such nightmarish thoughts sent a chill down her spine. Then Kyoka looked, her horror turned into full bloody rage as she couldn't help but release all the demonic and yokai power from her body, with the yokai cat's hands clenching so hard that it would break her bones. This shy Hasekai reminded her way too much of her old master, and she would personally love to hunt every last one of those humans down and show them what real hell looks like. Kyoka, Ren shouted loud enough to snap her out of her funk. Calm down. You're releasing your power all over the place. Kyoka then blinked a wide eye before noticing what she was doing and retraced the killer aura she was releasing, while taking a deep breath to calm herself down. Sorry about that, I lost myself for a moment, Kyoka said, returning back to her calm demeanor. But there was still a hint of anger on her face, seeing that brought back some unpleasant memories. She said, growling a bit under her voice. That's understandable. I was pretty angry myself when I learned about these myself, Midoriya said to her with his own hint of anger. Your sister, Iri, is she all ready? Kyoka gently asked the human. Yeah, she is fine. I managed to rescue her from the men responsible for her suffering, and now they're rotting in a prison cell, Ren said to her, making Kyoka feel a little bit better about how things worked out. But all of those experiments on her left Iri in an emotional state of trauma, he said, making the yokai woman sadly frown at the information. So I'm trying to do everything in my power to return Iri's happiness back to her and make her forget about her horrible past. I know it isn't going to be easy, but luckily I have my friends here to help me, he said, making Midoriya smile a bit that he has that much trust in him. You must really care about her, don't you? Kyoka said with a generic smile. Of course I do. She may not be my real sibling, but I would do anything to keep her safe. Ren locked eyes with Kyoka with a faint glare. Just like you, Kyoka, if anyone hurts Iri in any type of way, I'll kill them, Ren said coldly, as he wasn't going to let anyone hurt his little sister anymore. I may not like the idea of killing, but, Midoriya said, getting the attention onto him, I would have probably done the same if I were in your shoes to protect my family. Kyoka didn't reply for the last few moments, simply studying them closely. After a few moments, she cocked her head to the side with a sly smile. You two really are interesting humans, Kyoka said to the both of them. Thank you both. Usually, people who listen to me don't want to listen to my side of the story or think I was just lying. Well, we're not like most people, who jump to conclusions without any sort of proof first, Ren said to her, smiling a bit with crossed arms. Plus, we have methods to tell if a person is lying to us or not, and you've been completely honest with us this entire time. Besides, family is important. We can understand how you feel, Midoriya said with his own smile. Kyoka now had a smile gracing her lips before speaking up again. Since I told you who I am, I think it time for you to tell me what those monsters were and more importantly your powers. She reminded them of their deal. And remember, no secrets, Naya. Ren and Midoriya looked at each other for a brief moment, as it was only fair that they return the favor since she told them her personal life story. It might be if you take the lead on this one, Ren. Midoriya said that his leader was better suited to explain things to her than him. Ren nodded to him quietly, before turning back to Kyoka. You sure you want to hear this? He asked sincerely. Of course, Naya. Why are you asking me? Kyoka said with a raised brow. Because if you learn only a part of something, you will end up knowing even less than when you started. Is that something you're willing to risk? Ren asked her again. Kyoka blinked a few times, taking in Ren's words. It did make sense, but the woman's curiosity was getting the better of her. I'll take my chances. So, spill it already, Kyoka said with a look of curiosity. Ren gave a sigh as he looked over at the Nekishu with a serious expression on his face. Kyoka, before we tell who we are and what we can do, you have to swear to us that what you're about to see and hear stays between us. Like what Midoriya told you earlier, is that we have very dangerous secrets. Secret that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. You have to promise to me that you won't tell anyone about our powers, Ren said to her in his leadership tone. While looking straight into her eyes, Kyoka just slightly looked back in awe at his authoritative tone and hardened eyes, as what he was about had to be something serious if he was speaking to her like that. And just like usual, Kyoka's curiosity was piqued before nodding back to him in agreement. I promise not to tell a soul, Kyoka said as gave them a serious response. Okay, then, Ren said, dropping his leader tone as he was going to tell her everything. So Kyoka, do you believe in the multiverse theory? Naya, Kyoka said, tilting her head to the side in confusion. Deep in the underworld within the Devil's controlled territory, an emergency meeting was taking place between the four great Satans, the leaders of the Devil race. Just a few hours ago, a wave of immense pressure had seemingly appeared out of nowhere, temporarily paralyzing the four of them by the sheer power it seemed to exert. However, just as soon as it appeared, the pressure vanished as well. The sudden wave of pressure was similar to the signal that Great Red gave off whenever he left the dimensional gap and traveled into one of the physical worlds. However, this wave of pressure seemingly exceeded even that. No, not just exceeded it, completely and utterly dwarfed it. Just the thought of that kind of unimaginable power a being would have to hold in order to do that was unsettling, if not terrifying, for the four of them to even think about. As soon as the group managed to organize their thoughts, they pushed aside everything that they had planned for the rest of the night and called forth a meeting on how to react and deal with this potential new threat. At the north end of the table sat Serzench, the man in charge of domestic affairs. While the other four Satans would never say it out loud, they all silently agreed that Serzench was pretty much the leader. He was the first to put out an idea, seek out the source of the power, observe it from a safe distance for a period of time to see whether it was benevolent or malevolent in nature, and eventually see if it was possible to reason or bargain with. The plan also held the purpose of ensuring that this power couldn't fall into the hands of any other faction. The idea was sound a one and was supposed by the leaders of the west and south ends of the table. At the west end of the table was Seraphal, the Satan in charge of foreign affairs. She changed out of her magical girl outfit into more suitable clothes for the meeting. Another thing of note was that she was the most well-known of the Satans out of everyone inside the room, partially due to her having her own TV show called Miracle Leviathan. Her idea was that they should seek out the power source and attempt to befriend it or, at the very least, convince it not to join any other faction that would attempt to harm the devil if it proved to be capable of intelligent thought. If it were more bestial in nature, then she proposed that they attempt to tame it. The idea held merit and it looked as though everyone was going to support it until she started talking about bringing the being onto her show Miracle Leviathan as a guest star along with her young sister Sona. That cost her the support of the man at the east end of the table. At the south end of the table slumped Ajuka Beelzebub, the head of the Underworld Technological Department. In the past, he had created the Evil Peace System, something that had single-handedly saved the devil race from extinction. If you thought his past accomplishments and inhumanely large intelligence would result in him bringing forth the best idea out of the group, then you were wrong. Ajuka had recommended that they try to capture and contain the being while studying it to see if they could somehow harness its power for themselves. If that failed, he would then attempt to dissect it. When asked, the man gained a gleam in his eye not too dissimilar from the mad fallen angel scientist, leader of Grigori Azazel, and enthusiastically exclaimed for science. Regardless, nobody there voted for his idea. At the east end of the table recited the last one of the four great Satans, Falbium Asmodeus, the leader of military affairs. Falbium is a tall man whose head is completely bald and has a goatee on his chin, and drooping brown eyes that would make most people believe that he was about to fall asleep. Those people would be right because he was about to fall asleep. Accursed narcolepsy. Anyway, Falbium had recommended that they put together an elite strike force and send that force out in an attempt to eliminate the possible threat being it could potentially amass any more power. It seemed like a possibly feasible plan. But then Ajuka brought about the question of what would happen if the attack failed. Nobody said anything, but judging from the power that they felt earlier, they were confident that if they failed, whatever caused the power surge could possibly out at least an entire city if it entered an enraged state. The debate continued for pretty much the entire night, with each Satan arguing for their idea to be used. At the end of the meeting, everyone put their ideas to vote, with the rules being that Satan couldn't vote for their own idea. Serzench's idea ended up winning, having gained the support of both Serafal and Ajuka. Falbium was left sighing in his seat. He knew Serzench's idea would win in the end. The man just oozed charisma that made people want to go along with him. Hell, even Falbium was tempted to vote for Serzench's option a few times. However, he had always reined himself in, repeating to himself that the threat was too dangerous to keep alive. Not that his vote mattered now. After their final vote, the 4 great Satans got up from their seats and started to leave in order to make necessary preparations. Under normal circumstances, all of their respective peerages would be filled in on the situation to ensure that they weren't left in the dark about any important goings-on. However, time was more than likely of the essence, which meant they couldn't waste any time with such pleasantries. If they play their cards right, they could potentially have a very powerful ally, or maybe even just a powerful being who agreed not to cause any harm to the devils. But if they messed up, well, the options didn't look too bright. If they were able to, the 4 great Satans would be praying to God right now, hoping that they didn't fail. But it wasn't only the devils having a decision on how to handle this matter. The event of tonight caused a lot of stress and fear around the realms and all kinds of sections within the supernatural world, to the point that every single faction in the supernatural world decided to have their own meetings to how to deal with this new appearance in their world. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 14. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.